Chapter 828. The leopard monster died, and its flesh and blood blossomed like fireworks. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Every person and every monster looked at Chu Yang, who was like a god. How did he do it? How did Chu Yang dodge the attacks and suddenly appear in front of the leopard monster? Cao Ju couldn't figure it out, and the silver wolf and Jin Duo couldn't figure it out either. The parrot's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Was the so-called master of magical powers and boundless magical powers really that master of magical powers and boundless magical powers? In fact, the parrot's little heart had been beating wildly when it saw so many monsters. It had long wanted to rebel. It was just waiting for an opportunity to give Chu Yang a fierce blow. Fortunately, this divine bird knew that this wicked man was powerful and didn't dare to act rashly. Otherwise, we would have been finished. The parrot rejoiced in its heart. When it thought about how it had performed well in order to sneak attack Chu Yang, it couldn't help but feel good again. As for the 9 Spirit King and the Winged Tiger King, they were completely stunned at this moment. Unbelievable. Teleportation? Could it be teleportation? If it was teleportation, the 9 Spirit King and the Winged Tiger King were horrified. This was too terrifying. No matter how many of them there were, it was useless. They would definitely kill this human in front of them. Teleportation, what kind of ability was this? What kind of realm did one have to be to use it? The little gold rock king, who had not made a move until now, was also shocked at this moment. He thought to himself, this kid is strange. Monsters, I told you that I'm not in a good mood. Now you believe me, right? Chu Yang broke the silence. But what he said was too strange. Suddenly, the onlookers couldn't help but laugh. Their expressions suddenly relaxed. Hashuan %%. The parrot was already cursing in its heart. It cursed loudly, this wicked thing is acting so mighty now. He must have something to rely on. In other words, his true strength is even more ferocious than now. The parrot was in complete despair. It felt like endless darkness was shrouding it. Its dark days were just beginning, and there was no end to it. It wanted to escape from the claws of the devil. It was impossible. As for revenge, that was even more wishful thinking. Then, it thought of something else and completely lost its temper. The almighty master that it spoke of was already so wicked that the heavens had no temper. These stupid demons, just wait to be roasted and stewed. If I'm not wrong, you were originally a stray dog, right? Chu Yang's next sentence was similarly frivolous and brainless. He was naturally targeting the 3 demonic beasts that had clamored at him just now. The snake demon was dead, the leopard demon was dead, and only the dog demon was left. Woof woof woof. Being stared at by Chu Yang, the dog demon was extremely frightened. With Chu Yang's methods just now, even the 9 Spirit King and the others would not be able to protect it. If I want to kill you, no one can let you live. Do you agree? What a domineering tone. Chu Yang looked at Little Gold Rock King, who hadn't made a move or made a sound. Do you have a problem with that? The entire place was deathly silent. Please pay attention, I'm going to take that dog's life in the next second. Pop! Chu Yang stepped forward in the void, causing ripples to appear in the void. His movement caused the nerves of the 9 Spirit King and the others to instantly tighten. They thought that Chu Yang was going to attack, but Chu Yang only took a single step forward. Chapter 829. At this moment, the radiance on Chu Yang's body became even more intense. It was even more dazzling and brilliant than a blazing sun. He bathed in the 5-colored radiance, and all his pores opened. He blended together with the essence of heaven and earth. The 9 types of spiritual qi circulated, becoming even more dazzling. Boom! He used the talent he had obtained from devouring the monster cores of the demonic beasts. The surrounding light suddenly surged, and the spiritual qi formed the figures of many demonic beasts. The flood dragon, the tiger, the black eagle, and the others all revolved around him. It was a terrifying scene. Such power made the eyes of the Little Gold Rock King, the 9 Spirit King, and the others shake again. They looked at Chu Yang and felt that everything seemed to appear in his body. Whoosh! Chu Yang used the path to heaven again, and his figure disappeared in an instant. When Cao Ju and the others saw Chu Yang again, their eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Chu Yang actually charged straight into the crowd of demons. The demonic beasts in front of the dog demon were terrified when they saw Chu Yang. They immediately attacked crazily. It spat out a huge amount of magma, but it was useless. It was directly crushed by the demonic beasts condensed outside of Chu Yang's body. The black eagle spread its wings and the white lion pounced. "Ah, no!" it cried out loudly. It was directly torn apart by the black eagle and the white lion, and it was strangled there. Bang! At the same time, the flood dragon and the tiger pounced on the demonic beasts in front of the dog demon, sending it flying. Then, it disintegrated and exploded in the distance. The dog demon witnessed everything with its own eyes. All of its ferocious flames were extinguished. Its body trembled, and it wanted nothing more than to immediately tuck its tail and run away. It couldn't believe that a mere human child dared to charge into the crowd of demons and kill it. There was no suspense. The moment Chu Yang appeared, the black eagle, the white lion, and the flood dragon swept away the obstacles for him. Then, he went straight for the dog demon. He fiercely swung his right leg like a golden snake dancing with thunder and lightning, and with a boom, it landed on the dog demon's body. The dog demon's tendons and bones were instantly torn apart as its massive body exploded into pieces. It did not even have the time to cry out in pain. In that instant, Chu Yang killed the dog demon. The light on his body became even more dazzling, as if a war god had returned from ancient times. He was bathed in the blood of his enemies and was invincible, taking the head of the general in the midst of a magnificent army. Cao Ju's group couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. This scene was simply their dream. At this moment, King Juling and the others could only watch on helplessly as Chu Yang killed the demon dog. It was too late for them to help. Although it seemed like a long time just now, it was only a matter of an instant. Chu Yang suddenly appeared in front of the dog demon and immediately killed it. By the time Chu Yang killed the demon dog, they had only just surrounded Chu Yang. They were extremely fearful and did not dare to act rashly. Chu Yang's divine ability, Path to Heaven, had even intimidated the pig demon. "You're Chu Yang, that bastard. I recognize your movement technique," King Juling suddenly said. Then, he recalled the humiliating scene in Siren City. His 9 lion heads roared, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." Chu Yang. At the little golden rock king's side, an endless amount of golden light suddenly burst out. Its eyes shot over like lightning. Immediately, 2 rays of golden light flew over and landed on Chu Yang's body. Roar. The winged tiger king's heart shook violently. He also roared, "It's you, you bastard. Arth, Chu Yang, you bastard." Princess Fox gritted her teeth. Cracking sounds came from her mouth. She would never forget the scene of Chu Yang cutting off her tail. Kai Kai Kai. The little 3-eyed king had gone completely berserk. Purple light beams shot out from its eyes like lasers, and some of the demonic beasts that were accidentally hit cried out in pain. Some of them were incinerated, while others were corroded to the point that white smoke rose. Chapter 830. The reason why the 9 Spirit King and the others were able to determine that the little brat in front of them was definitely Chu Yang was mostly because the humiliation that Chu Yang had given them was too unforgettable and too difficult to erase. However, Chu Yang hadn't admitted it yet. Everyone's eyes were fixed on him. Could it be that this little brat was the infamous Chu Bangguang, the great demon king, Chu Great Demon King, Chu Great of Isledor? But how was this possible? How could the great supreme Chu be only 8 or 9 years old? Furthermore, his appearance was not caused by some kind of transformation technique. Many people were also waiting for an answer. Only Cao Ju let out a long sigh in his heart. In the end, it was exposed. At this time, Silver Wolf and Jin Duo also opened their eyes wide, wishing that they could fix their eyes on Chu Yang. Chu Yang, their cruel little nephew is Chu Yang. They began to sweat. This was too much, wasn't it? Even this was possible. At this moment, they seemed to finally understand why this brat looked like Chu Yang, and why they would be hit with a brick when they called him little nephew. The disciples of the 5 Elements sect were also stunned. Chu Yang, who had turned the five elements sect upside down and stirred up the eastern wilderness, had actually been by their side all along. The parrot's eyes swept around, and finally confirmed a fact. This so-called Chu Yang must be extremely awesome. Otherwise, everyone wouldn't have reacted like this. Furthermore, it also confirmed a fact: the little rascal was not a little rascal at all. This thing was obviously a big rascal, but it had magically changed itself from a big rascal to a little rascal. You damned heavens! You let this wicked thing be too strong. This divine bird is going to die because of you. When the parrot looked at Chu Yang's young body, it felt a burst of fear in its heart. It was because it thought of some kind of great fortune, and it seemed that Chu Yang had obtained such a great fortune. What? You want revenge? Chu Yang's voice was not loud, but it clearly reached the ears of Little Gold Rock, Nine Spirit King, Winged Tiger King, and the others. Their minds shook together, as if they were about to collapse. It's really that bastard, that immoral bastard. Although they were extremely sure that it was Chu Yang before, after Chu Yang admitted it himself, they were still extremely shocked. They had heard too much about this person in front of them, and they had also deeply felt him. They had also imagined the appearance of this enemy of theirs countless times. However, they had never imagined that Chu Yang would look like this when they saw him. Moreover, this Chu Yang had been in front of them for who knew how long, playing them in circles, but they were still deceived. They were certain that Chu Yang had already laughed at them to death. He must have despised them to the extreme because they were really too inferior. Boom! The group of monsters was shocked and their minds were shaken. Knowing that the human in front of them was a little brat, many monsters were so frightened that they suddenly retreated together. They were extremely terrified. Besieging Chu Yang, besieging this famous Demon King Chu, wasn't this courting death? Demon King Chu had defeated the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Devil sect, two extremely powerful sects in the eastern wilderness. At that time, many people had beaten up Demon King Chu alone, but what was the result? Moreover, the Little Gold Rock King, Nine Spirit King, Winged Tiger King, Little Three-Eyed King, and Princess Fox, whom they revered, were all ruthlessly humiliated by Demon King Chu. They were stripped naked and hung up to dry. If Demon King Chu wanted to kill the Little Gold Rock King and the others, it would be a matter of minutes. How could the many demonic beasts not be startled? How could they not be afraid? After all, Chu Yang had killed his way to fame. Haha. Chu Yang laughed loudly and then glanced at the monsters. Since you know that you're afraid, why don't you kneel down and apologize and shout the slogan of this great genius? There's no need to be afraid of him. Chapter 831. The reason why I didn't make a move just now was because I was guarding against him. The Little Gold Rock King's emotionless voice sounded again. In an instant, golden light burst out of its body. It was extremely dazzling and illuminated the entire place. It was like a god in the sky, emitting a great wave of energy that instantly stabilized the scattered morale of the army. Its golden eyes also looked at Chu Yang coldly. Chu Yang, you've finally appeared. These trash from the Five Elements sect are your greatest burden and weakness. If it weren't for these trash, no one would have been able to find you on Emperor Island. You should be proud of yourself. Proud? Chu Yang smiled. Little golden rooster, you've got guts. You even dared to scheme against me, but his gaze swept over them. You stinky, blue, and rotten bird eggs. You want to kill me? Little golden rooster, aren't you too naive? It's only a matter of minutes for me to kill you. The Nine Spirit King, the Winged Tiger King, the Little Three-Eyed King, and Princess Fox couldn't help but be shocked. They had a great advantage in terms of cultivation level in Sea Demon City, but even so, they still fell into Chu Yang's hands. Their cultivation levels were suppressed on Emperor Island, so they were even less of a match for Chu Yang. In that case, they were no different from seeking death. In an instant, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over them. They felt a chill from head to toe and unconsciously moved closer to each other. Boom! The crowd of demons was also in an uproar, and they all looked like they wanted to escape. In the dark, 3 pairs of eyes saw everything clearly. They were also shocked by Chu Yang's appearance. These people were naturally Nu Yi, who was like a meatball without legs, Nu, who looked like a poor scholar, and Nu-san, whose face was green and frightening. I've searched high and low for you, only to find you without any effort. Nu-yi's puppet-like, emotionless voice actually fluctuated at this moment. He said sinisterly, "Who would have thought that the young master of the East Continent is really Chu Yang? What a great trick." "It is indeed a good trick. We were completely played, but in the end, we were one step ahead." Nu said in a hoarse voice, "The young master of the East Continent and Chu Yang are the same person. Now we don't feel so pressured. Today is the anniversary of his death next year." A dark green light suddenly appeared on Nu-san's face as he said, "I don't think we can count on those trash from the monster race." The young master of the East Continent was Chu Yang. This was a pleasant surprise for the three of them. If we restore their cultivation to the soul reincarnation realm, they should be able to fight against Chu Yang. Nu-yi's voice became extremely low. Compared to his emotionless voice in the past, it was as if the sun had risen from the west. "Hee, Nu-yi." Nu-san laughed strangely. "Nu-san, are you nervous? I've never seen you so cautious before." "I'm indeed nervous," Nu-yi admitted frankly, causing Nu-san's strange laughter to stop abruptly. Nu was also shocked. "Nu-san, you have to know that our goal this time is completely different from before." Nu-yi's voice became even lower. "This Chu Yang, we previously received news that he was a level 4 array master, but what about now?" He suddenly pointed at the thunder array formation that Chu Yang had set up. "Level 5 array formation." The deep voice changed again, and it was filled with shock and disbelief. Chapter 832. A level 5 array master was an existence that could contend against those at the spirit realm by relying on arrays. It wasn't that no array masters had entered Emperor Island in the past. However, since the existence of Emperor Island, Chu Yang was the first person to enter Emperor Island as a level 5 array master. With such amazing talent, if one of their masters had appeared, they would have obtained the inheritance of Emperor Island long ago. They would have unified the Eastern Wilderness a long time ago. Furthermore, the three of them wouldn't have to live in the darkness like 3 rats and do endless dirty work. Chu Yang had completely exceeded their imaginations. It was as if Chu Yang was an even higher and more noble being. The array also needs to be destroyed. The more Nu and Nu-san thought about it, the more shocked they became. In the end, Nu-'s hoarse voice became extremely low. "Without the formation, this bunch of trash from the demon clan will have a chance to fight with Chu Yang. They will force him to use all his trump cards and exhaust him. At that time, I will make a move to assassinate him. It will be absolutely foolproof." Nu-san's cold voice suddenly became excited. What sense of accomplishment was there in assassinating an insect? Killing an insect was a matter of course. Only by assassinating a dragon like Chu Yang, a true prodigy, would one be able to show off one's ability and feel a great sense of satisfaction. "The array can't be touched right now," Nu-yi vetoed. "The array is now like a barrier, a shell. Its existence will give Chu Yang something to rely on. It will give him a sense of security, and his guard will be lowered. If the array is touched and he notices it, he will become vigilant." Nu-yi looked at Nu-san. "The success rate of your so-called assassination will be greatly reduced. In fact, your assassination will no longer be an assassination." With that, Nu-yi lowered his eyes. In an instant, there was no trace of life on his body, as if he was a living dead. Nu and Nu-san naturally weren't worried at all. Nu-yi was just focusing all of his attention on the little gold rock king. This soul-stealing technique was very exquisite and had evolved from the Soul Devourer clan's soul technique. On the other side, the little gold rock king sneered at Chu Yang's disdain. "We're here on Shao Zun's orders to kill you. Do you think Shao Zun hasn't considered your combat strength?" Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The feathers on its body shot out and instantly appeared in the hands of 9 Spirit King and the Winged Tiger King. Then, the feathers tst swoosh swoosh swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As soon as the jade seal appeared, King Juling and the others released a great wave of energy. Waves of energy rushed out and swept through the surroundings. Their realms broke free from the Emperor Island's suppression at a visible speed and continued to climb. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the blink of an eye, 9 Spirit King and the others had all broken through the Emperor Island's suppression and recovered to swoosh. Ha ha. Little Three-Eyed King couldn't help but laugh loudly when it sensed its recovered strength and released its domain again. Its purple hair danced in the wind as it stared coldly at Chu Yang. Seeing how pure and clear Chu Yang's eyes were, it said darkly, "Chu Yang, you stole my supreme treasure. You've cultivated your eyes well. They've become even more beautiful." Chapter 833. Roar. The 9 Spirit King and the Winged Tiger King roared furiously as well. When the little Three-Eyed King mentioned that Chu Yang had stolen their treasures, they immediately recalled the great humiliation that Chu Yang had inflicted upon them. Their roars shook the sky. "Chu Yang, I will take your head and hang it on that string of Buddha beads." The 9 lion heads of the 9 Spirit King roared at Chu Yang at the same time. 9 sound waves immediately rushed toward him. "All of you are so cruel. I feel like I have to make the first move. Otherwise, I will be fine." The Winged Tiger King's voice was also cold. He stared at Chu Yang and licked his lips. "I will drink his blood and use his bones to make soup. Hee hee." Apart from them, there was also Princess Fox. How could she forget that Chu Yang had cut off her tail? At this moment, she laughed coquettishly. In her human form, her hair was like a waterfall. Her face was delicate and her eyes were sparkling. She was very beautiful. Her skin was also very delicate. It was as white as jade and had a sparkling luster. It made her even more charming. Especially now, it could be said that a single smile from her could charm hundreds of people. She took out a jade table from her space ring and placed a plate of fruits and desserts on it. With a smile, she slowly enjoyed the desserts. Then, she said casually, 9 Spirit King, Winged Tiger King, don't be so violent. You can take it slow. For example, whoosh, whoosh. What do you think? Princess Fox did not look at Chu Yang. Instead, she smiled at the 9 Spirit King and the others. Then, she said coquettishly, he can bear to cut off my tail. I can also be ruthless and cut off the heads of his brothers. One by one, I will let him experience it carefully and slowly. It will be wonderful. Hee hee. Seeing Princess Fox's actions, the 9 Spirit King and the others could not help but laugh happily. They looked at Chu Yang mockingly. Princess Fox's sudden attack caught Chu Yang off guard. Looking at the headless corpses and blood spurting out like fountains, he gritted his teeth and immediately took out the yin-yang 4 symbols vase. Whoosh, whoosh. Immediately, the expressions of King Juling and the others tensed up as they released their own domains. There is no need to be afraid of him. Princess Fox was the calmest of them all. Its artifact is being suppressed by the Emperor Island, so it can't release its domain. Even if it's a body cultivator and possesses astonishing strength, it can only tear apart the domains of those at the 5th or 6th level of the soul reincarnation realm. It can't do anything to our domains. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Tiger whoosh, 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 whoosh. Sucking. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Seeing this, Princess Fox immediately laughed coquettishly. Heartless Chu, you are so cruel. Are you trying to refine your senior and junior brothers into water or burn them to ashes? She was wearing a long white dress. She was extremely beautiful and charming. She was definitely a beauty, but at this moment, she struck fear into people's hearts. The surrounding humans looked at the charming smile on Princess Fox's face and felt a chill run down their spines. That makes sense. The Winged Tiger King also smiled. However, his smile was a little sinister. The tiger teeth in his wide mouth were extremely sharp and were shining with a dazzling cold light. We can also create a gourmet rankings later. Let's invite Deb or Chi Chu to comment. Is red kill head better or human bone soup better? The 9 Spirit King also smiled brightly at Chu Yang. The heavenly rock feather passed down by the ancestors of the little gold rock king. Another dazzling golden light shone. Chu Yang also used the golden origin to transform into the appearance of a transformer. Clang, clang, clang. The The 9 dragons' bell rushed out, carrying traces of chaotic energy. It hung above his head. The sound of the bell and the dragon's roar rang out loudly. He also took the 7 kills sword in his hand. At this moment, Chu Yang no longer needed to hide anything. Therefore, he used all his treasured weapons and all his means. This burst of energy was extremely dazzling. The golden light on the little golden rock king's body suddenly became incomparably dim. Chu Yang was like a golden deity that had descended from the heavens to the mortal world. He pointed the long sword in his hand at the little gold rock king and the others. "Today, all of you will die. You will be the first to die." Chu Yang said coldly, "The way to die, I will strangle your neck and choke you to death. You can understand this as a warning of death. I ask you to be prepared to die." Bang. Chapter 834. You're about to die, yet you still dare to be so insolent. Can you even kill me? Hong. The little gold rock king's pair of golden wings suddenly flapped, rushing into the sky. Everything was smashed to pieces by its wings, creating 2 enormous pits on the ground. It was extremely terrifying. It rushed into the sky, its body becoming 100 jong long, covering the sky and covering the earth, blocking Chu Yang's path. Its enormous and extremely sharp crocodile claws were dazzling, shining with an oppressive sharpness. It grabbed at Chu Yang, releasing waves of sharp whistling sound. Not to mention a person of flesh and blood, even a sturdy divine metal or a mountaintop would be directly crushed. That pair of rock claws were extremely terrifying. King Ju Ling let out a long roar. His body also changed to a size of 1,000 feet. Suddenly, it seemed as if the mountain had become taller. The few lion heads roared in unison. 9 sound waves could be clearly seen surging up. They were like 9 huge waves that shook the heaven and earth. Then, they rushed toward Chu Yang. Lion's roar, this was the 9-headed lion's precious technique. When the sound waves were released, the earth collapsed, giant rocks were all blown into the air, the scene horrifying. Peng, the little 3-eyed king, suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a streak of heavenly flame. Immediately, the void became completely red, surging up like magma. The winged tiger king also moved, the tiger's roar shaking the heaven and earth, turning into a blazing sharp light. It was like a divine weapon as it rushed over, everything it encountered was cut apart. Its speed was too fast, as if an enormous flying sword was weaving about, erupting with an enormous sonic boom. Chu Yang's path was forcibly blocked. If it was in the past, he would definitely evade, producing over 100 phantoms in an instant. Layer upon layer of phantoms, real and fake, together with the 5 elements' chaotic steps, whether it was evading or directly attacking an enemy, it was all too easy. Only now, Chu Yang did not have any thoughts of evading, nor did he have any thoughts of using any techniques. He wanted to face it head-on, beat the little gold rock king and the others until their livers trembled in fear, making them all die one by one in fear. The Yarrow clan thought that their fists were tough, so he would let them see whose fists were tougher, and who was stronger and more invincible. He wanted to crush their pride, their self-confidence, and everything else. He wanted to completely crush them and let them know who was more domineering. Since they dared to kill in front of him, none of them should even think about living. None of them should even think about escaping. All of them had to die. Rumble. Chu Yang's figure did not stop. The void behind him continued to explode, and the sound of the explosions was like endless thunder. The rumbling sound was so loud that it almost shattered people's eardrums. And in the midst of the loud sound, one after another large dragons appeared, a total of 140 large dragons. 140 dragons, 140 dragons' strength. His body now had 20 dragon strength. With the 3rd revolution of the primitive martial and the 3rd revolution of the chi soul, he had 120 dragon strength. Adding on the boost from the gold origin, he had a total of 140 dragon strength. Loud dragon roars rang out. It was as if 10,000 dragons had rushed out from the nest of 10,000 dragons, filling the sky. That scene caused everyone's pupils to tremble as they watched everything in disbelief. 140 dragons' strength. Frenzied screams pierced into the battle between the two at this instant. Slave 1 and the other 2, who were hiding in the dark, saw Chu Yang erupt with 140 dragon strength. Their bodies, hands, guts, and livers trembled. How astonishing was 140 dragon strength! In the land of the eastern wilderness, who could erupt with such an unimaginable power in the ascending soul tier? Chu Yang had once again exceeded the expectations of Slave One and the others, and this 140 dragon strength could be said to be practically a miracle in the land of the eastern wilderness. In their impression, there had never been anyone in the land of the eastern wilderness who could erupt with such astonishing power. Even the great emperor of the eastern wilderness in the ascending soul tier did not have such ability. Chapter 835. Rumble. At the same time, a huge ball of lightning and thunder appeared in Chu Yang's hand. It was the five elements' thunderous hand. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Amidst the endless light, the dazzling lightning tore open a huge hole and covered all the light. Boom! Both sides finally collided. Suddenly, heaven and earth shook fiercely and the ground under their feet shook violently. Two huge balls of light immediately formed there. It was as if two suns had collided and exploded with an incomparably dazzling light. Everyone was temporarily blinded. The entire Emperor Island suddenly lit up at this moment. The shockwaves from the collision swept everything away and exploded. Everyone and all the demonic beasts fled for their lives at this moment, flying into the air. However, even more of them were directly blown away by the wind. Some even directly exploded or were thrown away, blood spurting out crazily. Boom! In the end, the two balls of light that were like suns exploded and formed an even bigger ball of light. It expanded infinitely, as if the sun had expanded infinitely and then exploded violently. Endless waves of energy were boiling. They were like waves of molten metal in the void. The raging waves beat against the shore and melted everything. Everything collapsed. The space was distorted and all life was destroyed. That instant felt like an eternity. In that instant, there was only endless light in heaven and earth. In that instant, no one knew who would win or lose in such a collision. No one could tell. Everyone present couldn't, and neither could the demonic beasts. Nu Yi, Nu and Nu San, who were hiding in the dark, couldn't either. They didn't know if Chu Yang had won or lost. Perhaps both sides would be tied and both sides would be injured. After a moment, the light faded. However, the violent energy impact erupted with huge flames, lightning, and all kinds of destructive forces that were still destroying everything. At this moment, heaven and earth seemed to be roasted. The water vapors were all evaporated. The destroyed plants were all burning fiercely. The rocks were all red. Some people and demonic beasts were even on fire as they screamed in fear. After that, the light completely dissipated. Everyone and demonic beasts saw that the little gold rock king and three-eyed king seemed to have been sent flying high into the sky. Meanwhile, the winged tiger king was embedded in a mountain and the nine-spirit king was directly knocked off the mountain. Keek! Suddenly, a series of strange noises were heard. Everyone's eyes immediately looked over, and their pupils couldn't help but shrink. Princess Fox was originally protected by the little gold rock king and the other demonic beasts. However, at this moment, the beautiful and charming Princess Fox had already stuck out her long tongue. Her eyes turned white as she struggled with all her might in the air. Her fair and delicate hands were also frantically trying to pry open that golden metallic hand. However, it was as if she was a bug trying to move a mountain. It was so laughable. On the other side, a golden metallic figure was like a god. He was holding Princess Fox with one hand and looked at her with a pair of golden eyes that were extremely cold. Chu Yang. Chu Yang actually won. He actually won. Won against many. He fought the little gold rock king, the nine-spirit king, the winged tiger king, and the little three-eyed king alone. However, he actually won in the end. One had to know that Chu Yang's cultivation was only below the soul wheel realm. However, the little gold rock king and the other demonic beasts had obtained the square seal that was like a jade seal. They completely resisted the suppression of the Emperor Island. Although their cultivation hadn't recovered to the 9th level of the soul wheel realm, they were still at the 7th or 8th level of the soul wheel realm. Chapter 836. A martial artist below the Soul Wheel realm was able to send 4 demonic beasts at the 7th or 8th level of the Soul Wheel realm flying. If their cultivation levels were reversed, it would still be understandable. However, everyone felt as if they were dreaming and couldn't believe it. Between heaven and earth, there was only one sound, the sound of Princess Fox struggling. Now, she was forced by Chu Yang to reveal her fox form. Beautiful, smooth, and silk-like fur. Her pair of purple eyes were filled with endless fear. Chu Yang, how dare you? The little gold rock king circled back in midair. Its anger seemed to have erupted with golden light and was burning fiercely. The feathers on its body were like divine weapons that were buried deep in the ground. They seemed to be made of gold and were filled with a metallic texture. At this moment, they suddenly shot down. Kai kai kai, a storm of arrows followed the little gold rock king as it dived down, forming a golden rain of swords. Woo woo, the wind seemed to be crying. The swords were resplendent, and each feather was like a golden spear. The sharpness of the swords pierced through the 9 heavens. It was extremely terrifying. The sound of the swords breaking through the air resounded throughout heaven and earth. Everyone's expression changed instantly. Roar, the 9 Spirit King also flew up from the bottom of the mountain. He didn't have time to pounce over, so he unleashed another lion's roar. The lion's roar technique was astonishing. The 9 lion heads roared at the same time. The sound waves were tangible, and one could clearly see the ripples of the sound waves. It was like a tidal wave, covering the sky and covering the earth as it swept over. On the other side, the 3-eyed king still used his third eye. A pitch-black demonic saber seemed to have rushed out from the depths of hell. The saber corroded the air and everything. White smoke billowed out of the saber as it slashed towards Chu Yang. The winged tiger king also made his move. The attacks of the 4 caused the heaven and earth to tremble. The scene was extremely terrifying. Every attack was like the blade of doomsday, wanting to destroy everything. I said I'll strangle it to death, so I'll definitely strangle it to death. How does it feel? How does it feel? Chu Yang's golden eyes watched everything. His metallic face revealed a cold smile. He didn't even put the attacks of the little gold rock king and the others in his eyes. Shua. As the endless waves of attacks bore down on them, everyone began to sweat. Finally, Chu Yang used his heaven-span path divine ability to vanish in the blink of an eye. First, the little gold rock's feather pierced through the ground, sinking straight into it as if the ground was a piece of tofu. 9 Spirit King's sound wave immediately arrived, and a layer of the ground was directly shaved off, blowing away little gold rock's feathers one by one. The demonic blade of the little 3-eyed king sliced King Ju Ling's sound wave in half and cut it into the ground, creating a huge hole in the ground. Billowing white smoke rose, turning the originally smooth hole into a hole of various sizes. The winged tiger king's attack was the last to arrive. A huge cloud of smoke and dust suddenly exploded there. It was like a storm of dust that completely enveloped the heaven and earth, creating a haze. The attacks of the 4 of them were extremely frightening. If it were anyone else, facing such an attack, they would most likely be smashed to pieces. However, the person they encountered was Chu Yang. Such an attack was completely useless in front of Chu Yang. Continue, you guys. Don't stop. Let me see how crazy you all are. I'll let you all have a good time today. Chu Yang's cold voice sounded. This time, he was really furious. How could he let them off after killing his fellow disciples in front of him? Whoever dared to do so would have to pay a heavy price, no matter who it was. Hiss, all the living beings present couldn't help but gasp at this moment. Not only was Chu Yang not afraid of the little gold rock king and the others, he even provoked them again and again, afraid that they wouldn't be angry enough and crazy enough. What kind of courage was this? In this eastern wilderness, besides Chu Yang, who would dare to do such a thing? Roar. The little golden rock king and the others were all in a frenzy, but at this time, they all suddenly froze in place. In their eyes, they saw a miserable face appear behind Chu Yang. The face held a greenish-black sword, and as if it was piercing a piece of tofu, it pierced through Chu Yang's entire body. Then, a voice that made 9 Spirit King and the others' hair stand on end sounded. Chu Yang, do you feel good like this? Chapter 837. Nu1 and the others had made their move. They had made their move in advance. They had no choice. This was definitely not the best situation they had expected. To be precise, it was extremely bad. Chu Yang was too powerful. He was so powerful that he had disrupted all of their plans. 140 dragon power was too frightening. The great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness was inferior. No one in the entire Eastern Wilderness could compare to him. In addition, Chu Yang had killed Princess Fox. They had given King Zhu Ling and the others the square-shaped mark that could resist the suppression of Emperor Island. It had also fallen into Chu Yang's hands. In this way, the treasures on Chu Yang's body would break free from the suppression of Emperor Island. At that time, King Zhu Ling and the others would be nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs. They wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. Nu1 and the others had hoped that King Zhu Ling and the others would exhaust Chu Yang as much as possible and force Chu Yang to use all of his trump cards. However, all of this had failed. If they waited until King Zhu Ling and the others were all killed by Chu Yang, it would be too late. Therefore, they had no choice but to make their move. They had to make their move at the most chaotic time. The one who made the move was Nu-san. With his void assassin martial soul, he succeeded in the assassination. The moment Nu-san succeeded, his taut heartstrings suddenly relaxed. All of the pressure, worry, and anxiety disappeared. An elite like Chu Yang had really put too much pressure on him. This wasn't an exaggeration at all. In the past, it had been easy for him to assassinate others. The other party didn't even know how they had died, let alone react. However, when he assassinated Chu Yang, he had suddenly appeared from the void. Chu Yang had already sensed it, and he was horrified. He stabbed his sword at Chu Yang. Logically speaking, he should have pierced Chu Yang's heart and then pierced through it. However, he didn't manage to do so. In that instant, Chu Yang reacted. He shifted his body and avoided his vital points. Fortunately, this was not the only trick he had up his sleeve. The poison on the sword might not be the most violent and vicious, but it was definitely the most inconceivable. At this moment, everyone saw his face clearly. He was neither tall nor short. He wore green clothes and wore ugly and clumsy green and black gloves. His face was gloomy and green, and it was extremely terrifying. Such a person did not look like a living person at all. He seemed to be a poisonous corpse. Regardless of whether it was the green color on his face, the greenish-black gloves, or the greenish-black sword, that kind of color made people uneasy and tremble with fear. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Almost at the same time, another person shot out like a bolt of lightning. His entire body was scarlet red, as if he was a person who had just been fished out of a pool of blood. He held a scarlet blood sword in his hand and also pierced through Chu Yang's sword. All of the scarlet blood on the sword entered Chu Yang's body. Then, the scarlet color around this person faded away, revealing his appearance. He wore a purple robe that had been washed until it was white. His entire body was covered in grease. His fingernails were extremely long and extremely dirty. His face was yellow and thin. He wore a scholar's handkerchief, which was tied up by his disheveled hair. His entire person was extremely sloppy, and he looked extremely like a poor and pedantic scholar. However, in each and every one of their minds, what they remembered was the terrifying appearance of his scarlet red body. After the successful attack, the two people immediately retreated. They were afraid that Chu Yang would counterattack before his death. This time, I can finally be at ease. Enua looked at Chu Yang, who was standing still. His yellow and thin face finally blossomed with a relieved smile. Chu Yang was definitely going to die. Jie. Enyu-san heard this and laughed strangely. His eyes emitted a miserable green light. Everyone present panicked and couldn't help but take a step back. Chapter 838. At this moment, Chu Yang couldn't move at all. When the first sword pierced into his body, the fierce poison spread all over his body in an instant, paralyzing every one of his nerves. So much so that he couldn't feel any pain, as if his whole body had been petrified. When the second sword pierced into his body, There was a strange energy that completely seeped into his blood, causing his blood to boil violently. It was as if it was going to burn him into ashes. Blood was a strange secret technique that controlled blood. It was shockingly powerful and very troublesome. The burning blood technique and the violent blood technique were the most basic secret techniques of this type. At that moment, Chu Yang's body was filled with strange blood energy. He would either burn or explode, turning into a pile of minced meat. Who are they? When did they target me? Why didn't I notice at all? Both of them were very shocking. One of them had suddenly appeared out of thin air, which was even more brilliant than Chu Yang's assassination with the path to heaven. Even though he was proficient in this art, he still couldn't avoid it. The other was a caster with a blood secret technique. What made Chu Yang feel the most despair was that when he used his genius and full martial souls to expel the poison, they didn't move at all. His greatest reliance had disappeared. Enyu-san laughed strangely again. Chu Yang, are you happy enough? He, although it was repeated again, everyone still felt that it was extremely sharp and bitter. Chu Yang had just shown his prowess and questioned the other party, when he was immediately returned to him. Enyu-san, you should introduce yourself first. That's right. Enyu-san laughed strangely again. Chu Yang, listen carefully. I'm Enyu-san, Shao Zun's third servant. I'm Enyu. King Nine Spirit and the Winged Tiger King heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. They were on the same side. The words of Slave 2 and Slave 3 were naturally not nonsense. Instead, they had great meaning behind them. In addition, I also want to explain to you what it means to be fated. Enyu-san continued, although you're amazing and have 140 dragon strength, Shao Zun and even the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness can't compare to you, but you're the one who's going to die. Destiny isn't on you, but on Shao Zun, so it's fated. All of a sudden, Chu Yang's body grew taller. From the appearance of an 8 or 9-year-old, he turned into the appearance of an 11 or 12-year-old. The aura on his body became even more vigorous. Enyu-san's voice came to an abrupt end as he collapsed to the ground. His entire body was trembling, and his teeth were chattering. Everyone was astonished. Enyu-san was such a terrifying person, yet he was terrified to such an extent. However, the changes in Chu Yang's body were indeed inconceivable. What's going on? What kind of poison is this? It's so strange. Chu Yang also had a look of shock on his face. He had suddenly advanced to the second revolution, and his physical body had reached the 5th layer, increasing his strength by 50 dragon force. Gaga. Seeing Chu Yang's shocked expression, Enyu-san immediately relaxed. Chu Yang, as expected of an unprecedented person in the Eastern Wilderness. You've actually undergone such a transformation. I'm sure you're also very surprised. Now, let me introduce you to what desolate poison is. Desolate poison? Chu Yang had never heard of it before. He had killed many elders of the Soul Devourer clan and many demons of the Thousand Demon sect, collecting their souls. From their souls, he already had a thorough understanding of the Eastern Wilderness. There should be very few things in the Eastern Wilderness that he didn't know. You haven't heard of it, right? That's right. Enyu-san laughed strangely. Hehe, this desolate poison is extraordinary. It's something that the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness, that bullshit, specially concocted to deal with my old master. It can be called the #1 poison in the Eastern Wilderness. The great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness had specially concocted a lethal poison to deal with desolate demons. Chapter 839. As for the effect, you will see it very soon. As for the great monster Chu, you have already seen it and felt it, right? Enyu-san said to everyone, then looked at Chu Yang mockingly. Chu Yang was already speechless. The poison used to deal with desolate demons was actually used against him. Wasn't this thinking too highly of him? Desolate demons were extremely powerful. After being suppressed in Emperor Island for so many years, they had yet to die. Their realm was completely beyond his imagination. At this moment, he was definitely not on the same level as the desolate demons of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor's era. Enyu-san was even more playful, like a cat toying with a mouse. Great monster Chu, I can point it out for you. When I killed Wei Kingdom's crown prince and the others, not only were their bodies quickly destroyed by the intense poison, their corpses also rotted very quickly, emitting a foul stench. Therefore, when I said that the great monster Chu had seen it, I wasn't wrong. Secondly, when the great monster Chu was ambushed, a piece of flesh exploded from your back. Nu-san said with a smile, "Great monster Chu, when I said that you had felt it, there was nothing wrong with that, right?" Then, Nu-san's tone suddenly changed, causing Chu Yang to be shocked again. However, that was only the first generation of desolate poison. Nu-san laughed strangely. The first generation of desolate poison could not do anything to the old master. The old master and the great emperor of the eastern wilderness had a great battle. In the end, the old master chopped off the great emperor of the eastern wilderness's palm. This was a secret from back then. How could Chu Yang know about it? Everyone present, be it humans or demons, probably did not know either. They all revealed an attentive expression. When the great emperor of the eastern wilderness saw that the first generation of desolate poison could not do anything to the old master, he reconfigured the second generation of desolate poison. Nu-san looked at Chu Yang. "Great prodigy Chu, you should be very honored. I used the second generation baron poison on your body, that's why there was such a bizarre reaction." Chu Yang thought that if it was the Wei Kingdom's crown prince and the others' poison, or the poison that he had felt previously, his physical body should have been corroded to an extreme extent by now. However, this did not happen to him. In fact, it was extremely bizarre. Until now, he did not feel any discomfort. Nu-san, you said too much. Slave 2 opened his mouth. Slave 3 smiled and said, "I'm just letting him die with a clear understanding. I'm still too kind-hearted. Be careful. He's going to make you his scapegoat before he dies." As soon as Nu spoke, 9 Spirit King and the others became extremely nervous. Chu Yang's counterattack before his death would definitely be extremely terrifying. Nu, you think too highly of him. Nu-san sneered, "What else can he do after being poisoned? It's already a miracle that he hasn't died immediately." "That's true," Nu said hoarsely, "then let us watch how he dies, and then we'll go back and report." The two of them crossed their arms and stood at the side, watching how Chu Yang died. Of course, this was also what many people wanted to know. After all, they also wanted to know how terrifying the desolate poison was. Crack crack. Soon, the bones in Chu Yang's body were pulled out. In an instant, he grew taller again. In a short while, he had already returned to his original appearance, the appearance of a 17 or 18-year-old. The difference was that the current him was still different from the previous him. He was unbelievably beautiful as a woman. If it was in the past, Chu Yang would have stomped his feet. He was a pure iron-blooded man, so this was a bit difficult for him to accept. However, at this time, he was not in the mood to do so. Chu Yang had returned to his original age. His cultivation level was naturally the completion of the second transformation of the ascending soul tier. His martial soul and physical body had both reached the 9th level. This was very shocking, so much so that he wondered if this was a great tonic or a strong poison. Chapter 840. This is the desolate poison. It's so shocking that it made time pass quickly and took away my life. That was the last bit of Chu Yang's consciousness. Then, his flame of life was completely extinguished. Then, he saw his extremely old body that had been ruthlessly destroyed by time. Just like how a person's soul would float out after they died, Chu Yang's soul had already floated out. He wasn't old yet, but he could already see his old body. This was a very strange feeling. Time passed countless times in his body. This feeling was also incomparably deep. It was as if everything he had was quickly stolen away by a robber. So this is what death looks like. Chu Yang saw Nu-san. He walked to his old body and kicked it. Then, a voice that seemed to come from another world entered his ears. "Is he dead?" "He can't be more dead," Nu said. "The ignition blood technique that I left in his body has been completely wiped out. Not a single drop is left. The blood in his body has completely stopped flowing. It has started to turn cold and solidify. This desolate poison is simply unbelievable. Nu-san was amazed. Looking at Chu Yang's old body, he couldn't help but shudder. This was really unimaginable. Nu couldn't help but nod. This was the first time he had seen the desolate poison. Before this, they couldn't bear to use it at all. What a waste. Let's not talk about this anymore. It's time to carry out Xiao Zun's orders. After recovering from their shock, Nu and Nu-san began to give orders to King Juling and the others. Listen up, it's time for us demons to unify the eastern wilderness again. Xiao Zun has ordered that on Emperor Island, all those who are not of our race will be killed. Boom. The group of demonic beasts roared and howled. Instantly, miserable shrieks could be heard. The demonic beasts were extremely excited as they directly gobbled up a few of the spectators. After that, the group of demonic beasts started a frenzied slaughter. Screams rose and fell. The demons were ferocious and crazily surrounded and killed for a while. Suddenly, a cold but magnetic voice resounded throughout the entire place. Did I give such an order? Why didn't I know? Xiao Zun, King Juling and the others all drew to a halt upon hearing this cold voice. All of the other demon beasts also ceased their slaughter upon seeing this. Desolate demon young master, Nu and Nu-san's pupils shrank. The cold voice rang out again. The great emperor of the eastern wilderness is despicable, but his descendants are even more despicable and shameless. They've done all sorts of despicable things, yet they've pinned all the blame on me. What a brilliant move. Hualala. The sky inexplicably darkened, and a gust of wind blew. A thick thunder cloud quickly appeared in the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and heavy rain suddenly poured down. However, the cold voice did not continue to sound, and no one appeared in the surroundings. Rumble. A bolt of lightning suddenly tore through the sky, and the rumbling of thunder resounded throughout the world. After the rumbling of thunder, everyone suddenly heard an extremely sharp whistle. When they looked in the direction of the sound, only a few people saw a pitch-black arrow. It was like a bolt of black lightning that tore through the void and pierced through it. Demonic chi billowed from it, and demonic sounds rang out. Demonic shadows appeared and roared. Be careful. Nu-san cried out in alarm. However, when he saw this arrow, it was already too late. With a bang, Nu did not seem to have time to react. He was directly hit by the black arrow. Blood spurted out from the arrow. Then, he was sent flying and nailed to the ground. He was in so much pain that his body convulsed, and his face was distorted. Chapter 841. The figure in the center of the green light merely stood there, but it made everyone tremble in fear and feel powerless to resist. The group of monsters had all retreated at that moment. Welcome, Xiao Zun. A roar like that of a tsunami resounded. Every single one of the demonic beasts looked at the figure that was emitting an endless amount of light with extreme respect. The wind stopped, the clouds dispersed, and the rain stopped. The figure had already arrived above Nu and Nu-san. It had green hair, green eyebrows, and green eyes. Although they were both green, the two eyes were completely different. One was emitting endless light, while the other was very deep, like an abyss that was devouring light as much as possible. His facial features were exquisite, his face was fair, and his fingers were long and slender, but his hands were also very strange. One hand was as white as divine jade, while the other hand was as black as ink, as if it had just been scooped out of ink. At that moment, the black hand was holding a black demonic bow. Let me introduce myself. He spoke in the same cold and magnetic voice as before. My father was born in the chaos and is now suppressed on Emperor Island. I am respectfully called the Baron Demon Young Master. As he spoke, his green eyes looked at Nu and Nu-san. His voice didn't change, and it was still cold and magnetic. Let me introduce these two rats to everyone. This is the second of the 3 rats on Emperor Island. They live in the shadows all day and do all kinds of unspeakable things. This rat, the Baron Demon Young Master, pointed at Nu with his slender finger. It likes blood very much. If you're not careful, it will make your blood burn, or with a bang, it will directly blow you up. You can say that this is a bloody rat. As for this rat, It's even more powerful. Everyone's eyes followed the barren demon young master to Enyu-san. It can dig holes in the void and travel here and there. It will be a little difficult to kill this rat. Thank you for your praise, Xiao Zun. Enyu-er and Enyu-san's flattering voices suddenly stunned the Huang demon young master. He then smiled and said, "Let me continue the introductions. The 3 mice of Emperor Island are the descendants of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness. They were assigned to the Emperor Island by the descendants of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness. Their mission is to kill all the geniuses on the Emperor Island to ensure that the inheritance of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness will not be taken away." How could the desolate demon young master not understand the thoughts of Enyu-er and Enyu-san? Every time the Emperor Island opens, there are many casualties, especially the geniuses. Almost all of them were wiped out. This is one of the reasons. But it's a pity that the descendants of the Eastern Wilderness great emperor are all trash. After so many years, there isn't a single decent one. Xiao Zun, what are you doing? Enyu-er exclaimed in disbelief, his voice already trembling. Xiao Zun, are you trying to frame the descendants of the Eastern Wilderness great emperor to avoid being investigated by the 5 Elements sect? Enyu-san also said in a trembling voice, Xiao Zun, you don't have to do this. If we obtain the inheritance of Emperor Island, we will unify the Eastern Wilderness again. There is no need to worry about the 5 Elements sect. The sudden situation and the fact that both sides had different opinions confused everyone present. They couldn't tell who was telling the truth and who was lying. But if what the Huang demon young master said was true, then the descendants of the Eastern Wilderness great emperor were simply too sinister and vicious. 2 rats. Is this useful? The Huang demon young master sneered. 1000 Demon Sect, Soul Devourer Clan, do you really think that no one knows that the descendants of the Eastern Wilderness great emperor are controlling everything? His words stirred up 1,000 waves. Chapter 842. At this time, no one was paying attention to Chu Yang, the dead man. When the desolate demon young master appeared, Chu Yang's soul was captured by Oxhead and Horseface and imprisoned in the underworld. However, Oxhead and Horseface were his genius and idiot martial spirits, and the underworld was his incomparably old body. He was completely undergoing a cycle of reincarnation. The first cycle of the ascending soul realm, he once again experienced this process. The difference was that at that time, the 2 martial spirits were in charge, so he didn't feel anything at all. Now, he could feel every bit of the cycle of reincarnation, and his understanding of the cycle of reincarnation was even deeper. Chu Yang was naturally no longer afraid. The 2 martial spirits were using a magical thing like the desolate poison to let him feel the cycle of reincarnation. This desolate poison might be a deadly poison to others, but to me, it's simply a peerless divine object. I don't even know where to find it. Such a change was like the transition between hell and heaven. Under the guidance of the 2 martial spirits, Chu Yang immediately entered the second revolution after experiencing the reincarnation cycle, and felt the chaos. Everything happened extremely quickly, probably because the desolate poison wasn't enough, so the 2 martial spirits moved extremely quickly. After the cycle of reincarnation, his originally old body instantly turned into a baby, then 3 or 4 years old, 5 or 6 years old, 7 or 8 years old. In the end, the strength of his physical body was on par with the grades of the 2 martial spirits, and the changes stopped. Chu Yang's appearance finally stopped at the appearance of a 12 or 13-year-old. During this process, the Flood Dragon martial spirit and the Saber Sword martial spirit also rose from the 2nd grade to the 5th grade. With the cultivation of the Ascending Soul Realm's 2nd transformation 5th level, his physical body had the strength of 50 dragons, and his martial spirits had all risen to the 2nd transformation 5th grade. From the moment Chu Yang's soul was taken back into his body by the 2 martial spirits, to the time when his old body changed, the whole process was extremely short. At this moment, Desolate Demon Young Master had exposed the identities of Enyu-er and Enyu-san, as well as the matter of the descendants of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness. After their expressions changed, they realized that it was useless even if they succeeded in quibbling. Everything had to be killed in order to protect the reputation of the descendants of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness. Therefore, Nu and Nu San didn't hide anymore, revealing their ferociousness. Hee hee. Nu San laughed strangely, his voice was extremely cold, as if a snake's tongue was licking his face. Desolate demon prince, perhaps you should still be able to live for a period of time, but you are in a hurry to die. What's the point? Nu also stood up from the ground and pulled out the black arrow feather. His hoarse voice was unusually cold. I took your arrow for nothing. I should have dodged at the time, but it doesn't matter. The two instantly changed their faces, leaving everyone shocked. Everything Huang Yarou young noble said was actually true. What? You all aren't going to continue pretending? Are you not scared that news will leak out? Huang Yarou Gongzi laughed, his expression extremely calm. Do I need to be afraid? Nu's cold eyes swept over. I'll just kill everyone here. That way, no one will know. Where's your trump card? Is it Nu Yi, that big rat without legs? He can't activate the level 5 formation set up by Chu Yang. Desolate demon young master didn't turn around. His green eyes locked onto the two as he said, Brother Kuan, please throw that fat rat over for them to see. Bang! In the distance, there seemed to be a huge rock flying over. When it got closer, they saw a meatball. Then, it fell to the ground, and there wasn't much life left in it. Nu Yi. Nu and Nu San's pupils shrank. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Is there still this? Rumble. From desolate demon young master's body, a white light flashed and flew into the void. Then, there was a rumbling sound in the void. Then, a white bone palm appeared. Once this palm appeared, Nu and Nu San both shook violently. Their mouths opened so wide that a huge rock could be stuffed in. You recognize it? Desolate demon young master sneered. You copied the jade seal of the great emperor of the eastern wilderness and were able to resist the suppression of the emperor island. Do you think I'm not prepared? How about this bone palm of the great emperor of the eastern wilderness? The palm of the great emperor of the eastern wilderness. Boom. Immediately, everyone was shocked and astonished. However, no one made a sound. Two rats, what else do you have to rely on? At this time, desolate demon young master's voice became cold and loud. You two rats are quite capable, but in front of me, you're not enough. Jejia. When Nu and Nu San heard this, they were so angry that they laughed and laughed. Then, the two of them looked at everyone, all the monsters, and said in a strange voice, Desolate demon young master, you're too arrogant. Do you think you're a match for the two of us? Oh. Desolate demon young master didn't turn his head. His slender hand suddenly pointed at the little gold rock, and then he sneered. Are you looking for this rat that's good at burrowing holes in souls? His split soul is controlling that idiot. Is he your savior? It was as clear as a flame. Everything was clear. Nu and Nu San's hopes of getting lucky were completely extinguished. Nu San gritted his teeth and said darkly, I'd like to see how capable you, desolate demon young master, are. How dare you be so arrogant in front of us? Wait, you'll find out soon enough. Buzz. Because the desolate demon prince had already made a buzzing sound in the void, and seeing that the two sides were about to make a move, a somewhat lazy voice suddenly pierced through the void. I say, can these two rats not fight with me? Chapter 843. I say, can these two rats not fight with me? The voice that suddenly appeared wasn't loud, but when they looked at the person who spoke, this voice instantly sounded like the divine voice of the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was also like a sudden clap of thunder that struck down from the heavens. Everyone's ears buzzed, and in their consciousness, their entire spiritual world was also buzzing and shaking. Especially Nu Yi, Nu and Nu San. In an instant, they only felt as if a sudden clap of thunder had struck their minds like a giant axe, and their consciousness became blurry for a moment. With a crack, Nu Yi controlled the little gold rock king. At this moment, the rock claws clawed at the earth, and everyone only saw the little gold rock king collapse onto the ground. Its golden pupils were trembling violently, and its body was also trembling. Nu's yellow and thin face was completely devoid of its wax-like color. His face was pale, and his eyes were lifeless. The sudden appearance of that voice seemed to have shattered his soul. He sank into boundless fear, and his body was also trembling. Enyu San's pale face was completely drained of blood, and his palms were covered in sweat. His entire body was ice-cold, as if he had been frozen. He couldn't move at all, and the immense fear was like an endless cold wave that completely froze him. Chu Yang didn't die. Chu Yang was poisoned by the desolate poison, but he didn't die. How was this possible? They had already confirmed before that Chu Yang's body had undergone strange changes under the effects of the desolate poison. He had died of old age, and his life had been completely taken away. However, a person who was originally completely dead had actually come back to life at this moment. If Chu Yang had really come back to life, then what did those mysterious and strange changes mean? What had Chu Yang experienced just now? Seeing Chu Yang's body grow again, the three of them thought of two great horrors, time and reincarnation. Chu Yang might have mastered time or reincarnation. No matter which one it was enough to scare them to death. Not to mention the Eastern Wilderness, even in the East Continent, or in the world of the East Continent, this was an extremely shocking and frightening thing. You didn't die. Just as Huang Yarrow young master opened his mouth, he realized that his voice was actually trembling. Even his father had not been able to resist the desolate poison. In the end, he had been suppressed by the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness. However, Chu Yang had actually managed to resist it. Great fear, great terror. Everyone present, be it human or demon, felt a chill run down their spines at this moment. They had all seen with their own eyes how Chu Yang transformed from an 8 or 9-year-old into a teenager, then into a young man, then into a middle-aged man, then into an old man, until he finally died of old age. Just how shocking was the desolate poison? It was clearly a divine ability similar to time, and even such a divine ability couldn't kill Chu Yang. This was simply too inconceivable, and also too terrifying. Was Chu Yang still human? Ghost? Some people directly collapsed and screamed in panic. His ugly appearance made everyone feel distressed. They felt that their reaction just now was not excessive, nor was it shameful. Perhaps normal people would be like this. He must die. Boom. In the distant sky, a great aura suddenly rushed into the sky. There seemed to be a vast body of water there, and a figure stood on that vast body of water. He seemed to be the master of this vast body of water. Behind him, there seemed to be a great sun that bloomed like the beautiful multicolored light on the horizon. This person's sudden appearance was like a god descending from the heavens into the mortal world. He released an incomparably terrifying wave that made everyone shocked. Chapter 844. Kai. Although the sound of the sword piercing the flesh was very soft, it completely robbed this person of his endless light. Everyone looked for the sound and looked at Chu Yang again. At this moment, Chu Yang casually pierced Enyu San's back with his sword, just like how Enyu San pierced Chu Yang. Is this painful? A voice that made people shudder instantly appeared in the minds of everyone present. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. Enyu San treated Chu Yang the same way Chu Yang treated him before. Swish. Enyu San endured the severe pain and flew out along with the 7 killing sword in Chu Yang's hand. Then, he disappeared into the void and completely disappeared. A mouse is a mouse. Sure enough, once you are frightened, you will escape back into your mouse hole. Chu Yang did not care and continued to smile lazily. Mouse number 3, didn't you want to know if it was painful? How do you feel now? As soon as his voice fell, from somewhere in the void, there was a scream of horror. Then, an extremely old figure fell from the void. Enyu San was old, but not to the extent that he was hunched, almost curled into a ball, and his pale face had completely disappeared. His hair and teeth had all fallen out, and his whole body was shriveled up like a mummy. The sword just now was not painful. How about this? Is it painful enough? Desolate poison. When everyone saw Enyu San's appearance, they could not help but tremble. Who said that the desolate poison was not terrible? This was naturally not the desolate poison, but the magical power obtained from Chu Yang's reincarnation. After personally experiencing reincarnation, his magical power was even more amazing. Enyu San could no longer answer Chu Yang's question. He was already dead. Chu Yang flew over and directly put Nu San's soul into the reincarnation gourd. You know, even if you are dead, I still have a way to make you answer. Am I right? Those words made people shudder. Nu San was terrifying, but he had met someone who was even more terrifying than him. Such a result could not be any more miserable. And now, after Chu Yang put Nu San's soul into the reincarnation gourd and analyzed it again, he completely understood everything. For example, Nu Er's name was Li Chiwen, Nu Er was Shu San, and the Nu San he killed was Li Minghui. Chu Yang only looked at Nu San's soul once. He felt that what the three of them did was even more heartless than the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Demon sect. Naturally, this was not Chu Yang's goal. His goal was Nu San's void assassin martial soul. Sea God's son, desolate demon prince, let's kill him together. Otherwise, none of us are his match. As soon as Nu Yi spoke, the identity of the godlike figure that appeared just now was clear. The sea god's son, which was also the brother Kuan that desolate demon prince had mentioned. Ah! But at this moment, Nu Er's sudden scream resounded in everyone's ears. When Nu Yi looked over, he was shocked to see that Nu Er had been stabbed to death by Chu Yang's sword. Sneak attack. Chu Yang's void assassin martial soul was indeed ridiculously strong. His path to heaven was also very strong, but in the end, it could not hide in the void. For assassination, the former was more useful. You dare! The sea god's son, desolate demon prince, and Nu Yi were all furious. However, Chu Yang did not care about them at all. He said to Nu Er, "You just stabbed me, and now I'm stabbing you. I didn't go overboard, did I?" As if they were nothing, he treated all three of them as air. Chu Yang killed Nu Er and also took Nu Er's soul. This was all soul power. He could not casually kill an ordinary enemy, but Nu Er and the others were not in this category. Boom. Chapter 845. The void seemed to have become a vast ocean, and the air seemed to have become seawater. The child of the sea was like a large fish as he rushed over from the distant sky. The air was like seawater, setting off a great tsunami. Fierce winds also whistled endlessly, but there was already nothing in the surroundings that could be blown away. Huang Yarrow Prince also rushed over directly, the green radiance around his body dazzling. His fist was like a piece of jasper, and when he smashed over, it was like a falling star, extremely shocking. Nu Yi controlled the small gold rock king's physical body, transforming it to 300 meters long, covering the sky as he pounced over. The child of the sea was the first to make a move. His speed was extremely fast. Although he was still far away just now, he arrived in an instant. He arrived earlier than Huang Yarrow Prince and Nu Yi. Like a man-eating shark pouncing over from the sea, he immediately displayed the scene of a huge wave overflowing into the sky. That torrential wave was like a magnificent army with thousands of men and horses. Just this magnificent army with thousands of men and horses could kill Chu Yang. Not to mention that behind this magnificent army of thousands of men and horses, there was still a killing god. Scram to the side and play with the mud. Chu Yang raised a palm, and directly slapped over as if he was teaching a child a lesson. At this moment, Chu Yang looked no more than 12 or 13 years old. His hand was very small, and facing the attack of the child of the sea, that small hand seemed to be comparing the size of the ocean. However, what was shocking was that when this small hand swept over, the ocean was directly flattened, and the child of the sea, this big fish, was directly sent flying. Rumble. The child of the sea was as fast as he was just now, and now that he was sent flying, his speed was as fast as it was. He went straight into the mountain. The human-shaped hole was dark and bottomless. It was as if Chu Yang had created a bottomless hole with a slap of his palm. Then, he stuffed the son of the sea god into the hole so that he could search for the darkness. You go play with the mud too. Huang Yarrow Prince was also sent flying with a slap. His body bloomed with green radiance. If this was a grassland, then this grassland was instantly turned into a desert by Chu Yang's small hand. Incomparably arrogant, Chu Yang treated the desolate demon young noble and the son of the sea god as if they were two children. However, if one wanted to be arrogant, they had to have the ability to back it up. If one wanted to be arrogant, they also needed strength. Clearly, Chu Yang did not lack this kind of strength. This was especially true when the sea god's son and desolate demon prince had chosen to fight him in close combat. This was even more so. Chu Yang was currently at the second transformation of the ascending soul realm, the fifth stage of the primal chaos transformation realm, and his physical body had 50 dragon's strength. His third transformation and third transformation of the primal martial realm and third transformation of the primal martial realm had 6 times his strength, so he could unleash 300 dragon's strength. He had just unleashed 140 dragon force, and that had already scared all of the living beings present half to death. Now that he had unleashed 300 dragon force, how could the sea god's son and desolate demon prince be a match for him in terms of physical strength? Scree. Slave One's attack was the last to arrive. He controlled the small gold rock king's body, and it came crashing down like a golden mountain. The large-winged gold rock bird was 1,000 feet long. Its body was so huge that Chu Yang's small body was almost invisible. There was no need to mention Chu Yang's small hand. In front of the huge rock claw, it could be said that he was shaking a mountain with his bare hands. However, as soon as the two came into contact, the large-winged gold rock bird was like a large balloon crashing into a sharp needle. The huge rock claw was instantly broken and shattered. You don't have to play with the mud. I heard that you're very good at burrowing holes in other people's souls. Whoosh! Chu Yang's body shot up and appeared on top of the rock's head. With a punch, he directly shattered the huge golden rock's head. I also heard that you like to control other people and cause trouble. It seems like I've also been messed up by you. He directly pulled out Slave One's soul. Also, your soul can be split. I see that you indeed have a strange bone structure and extraordinary talent. You're a promising talent. Let's go and do some research with teacher. Chu Yang directly stored this strand of Slave One's soul into the reincarnation gourd. The entire place was deathly silent. Only Chu Yang's lazy voice could be heard. The 9 Spirit King, the Winged Tiger King, and the Little Three-Eyed King saw Chu Yang's divine might and recalled their previous provocation and clamor. They couldn't help but tremble. Chapter 846. Chu Yang, how dare you look down on me like this? A voice traveled out from the pitch-black cave. Then, there was a loud boom, and the mountain shook violently. Soon, divine light illuminated heaven and earth. At this moment, the son of the sea was like the setting sun above the sea. The radiance that he radiated caused the vast mountain to be covered in a layer of terrifying radiance. He really was like a god in the sea. His entire body was flowing with mysterious power. It was so intimidating that almost everyone present felt like they were suffocating. Chu Yang, it's not too late for you to atone for your crimes with your death. The son of the sea's tone quickly calmed down. There was no anger, nor was there any anger. It was as if someone like Chu Yang was not worthy of his anger. He had clearly been sent flying by a casual slap from Chu Yang. Now, he was saying something like this. It was extremely laughable. However, no one could laugh at the son of the sea's voice. There was a majestic majesty in his voice. It was vast and boundless, and it was as if an ocean was crashing down. It was terrifying. Who was he? The son of the sea. Everyone present instantly understood his confidence. How noble was the son of the sea? His anger could shake the wind and clouds, and his roar could shatter the sky. If he was angry, then the world should be turned upside down. He had the ability to do so. Little brat. Chu Yang shook his head, and said, you should at least show some respect to your teacher. Then, he said, you're lucky it's me. Otherwise, with your suicidal attitude, you would have died a long time ago. Brother Kuan, let me do it. The Huang Yarrow prince also returned, suppressing the son of the sea's anger. Although his words seemed calm, they felt like an active volcano. Even if they did not erupt immediately, the heat and destructive aura were already spreading. It could destroy heaven and earth at any time. Chu Yang, how dare you be so rude to me? How do you want to die? Arrogant and cold, it was as if a true dragon was angry at a bug. The Huang Yarrow prince was also as ignorant as the son of the sea. It was as if he had completely forgotten that he had just been sent flying by a slap from Chu Yang. These two shouldn't be idiots, right? Chu Yang secretly assessed the two's cultivation levels. After the Eastern Wilderness's Emperor's palm bone resisted the Emperor Island's suppression, the sea god's son and desolate demon prince both recovered to the 9th level of the soul wheel realm. However, this was still not enough. What Chu Yang was worried about was that they still had trump cards. One was the son of the desolate demon, and the other was the son of the sea god. Both of their foundations should be the strongest in the Eastern Wilderness. No one could compare to them. Let me see how capable you are to be so arrogant. Chu Yang sneered in his heart. Then, he scratched his head and laughed. You two brats really give me a headache. Who was your teacher before? Tell me, I promise I won't beat him to death. He pointed at Huang Yarogongzi and said, You lied. Your father was not a living being born from the primal chaos at all. Instead, he was a broken tree that absorbed the essence from the corpses of gods and demons. Then, he transformed and devoured the source energy of a small dimension, cultivating the source energy of gods and demons. Chu Yang naturally knew this from the souls of Nu-1 and the others. Then, your father severed his original body and tried to transform into a Kuan Peng. However, he failed in the end and became a never-before-seen demonic bird. In this way, your father is powerful, but he can't be considered noble. Chu Yang educated Huang Yarogongzi. Brat, don't put on a noble face all day long. Also, you still have to learn more about nobility. Chapter 847. Rumbling sounds could be heard as both the child of the sea god and Baron Demon Young Sir were enraged, causing everything around them to shake violently. Thump! Huang Yarogongzi took a step forward, and then another great tremor ran through his body. His eyes shone brilliantly, and there was unexpectedly a sun, moon, and stars. 2 green beams of light shot out, as if a demonic god from the ancient Great Earth had awoken, opening its terrifying eyes. Heh! Chu Yang yawned. Waving at Baron Demon Young Sir and the child of the sea god, he said, Why don't the two of you come at me together? I still have to hurry and find the antidote to cure the desolate poison. Don't waste my time. You really deserve to die. Baron Demon Young Sir roared, his voice like thunder from the highest heavens. Green light shot out, blinding to the eyes as he reached out toward Chu Yang. In the blink of an eye, an enormous green hand appeared in midair. Most shocking of all was that the hand seemed to contain a world of its own, a domain of devils, or a pure land of the legion of gods. At times, it was turbid and dark, but at other times, it shone with dazzling light and the sound of the gospel. Personal domain! Everyone gasped. Unexpectedly, Baron Demon Young Sir was able to detach his personal domain from his body and unleash it. It was almost as if his hand contained a world of its own. Generally speaking, personal domains could only be unleashed with the fleshly body as the center. But Baron Demon Young Sir was able to unleash his personal domain without the shackles of the fleshly body. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been possible. Baron Demon Young Sir's display of power caused the scalps of the other humans to go numb. Baron Demon Young Sir was so strong that if Chu Yang was defeated, they would all die at his hands. So that's what he's relying on, Chu Yang thought, visibly shaken. Baron Demon Young Sir was definitely not to be underestimated. In the Eastern Wilderness, there were very few people who could use a personal domain like this. Ruyuumble. The big green hand reached over and spread out limitlessly, wanting to envelop Chu Yang within. As it neared, the personal domain grew larger, and the devil-howling gospel of the gods became clearer. Whoosh! Chu Yang evaded. His entire body was curled up with multicolored light, making him look like a multicolored deity. However, that large green hand arrived immediately after, covering everything and casting an enormous shadow. With a buzzing sound, the 5 fingers of the large green hand suddenly expanded. The domain on the palm was also suddenly released, enveloping Chu Yang. Then, it violently contracted, completely trapping him within. Boom! Chu Yang didn't panic, nor did he use his full strength. The usage of such a domain was extremely wondrous. He wanted to understand the mysteries behind it. As for this domain, he didn't take it seriously. Ascending soul tier 2nd transformation stage 5th stage consummation, he could unleash it in a matter of minutes. Chu Yang attacked, constantly sensing the might of this domain. It looked like he was about to break through the domain and rush out. However, Desolate Demon Young Master was truly incomparably shocking. Demonic figures appeared in the domain one after another. Numerous divine spirits blocked all of Chu Yang's attacks, completely suppressing him and starting to refine him. Seal. The domain completely condensed into a large ball, and Desolate Demon Young Master wrote an ancient word on it. Then, the domain became even more solid. Endless demonic light and divine light all gathered at the center, attacking Chu Yang. Chapter 848. This method is not bad. Chu Yang's expression did not change. He waved his fist, one punch after another, bombarding the domain, causing the entire domain to tremble and become unstable again. Burn. Sacrifice. Refine. Huang Yarrow Young Master's expression changed. With a loud shout, he wrote 3 ancient words in succession and sent them into the domain. Immediately, the domain suddenly changed, turning into a huge furnace. Demonic chi surged within, black flames surged, magma surged, as if it was a furnace of hell, starting to burn and refine Chu Yang. At the very center of the furnace, a sacred altar appeared. Chu Yang was like an animal in the domain, about to be used as a sacrifice to some supreme existence. Chains of light pierced towards Chu Yang. Everyone's expression changed. This was too shocking. The demonic god seemed to be helping to kill Chu Yang. It was boundlessly terrifying, making people tremble. Is this Huang Yarrow's demonic god source? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed slightly. He felt a great sense of danger. He did not dare to be careless and fiercely punched. Dang, dang, dang. Loud sounds rang out continuously. Chu Yang hit the domain, as if he hit a bell or a pagoda, producing a vast sound of metal and stone. Under his bombardment, the domain that was like a furnace of hell shook more and more violently. Huang Yarrow Young Master's body was shaking. The Son of the Sea saw that the domain was unstable and wanted to come over to help, but he was a step too late. Chu Yang had completely used his strength. Sky flipping seal. Rumble. Once the Golden Elder's celestial inheritance was used, in the domain, Chu Yang was like the first batch of creatures born in the world. He was extremely powerful, able to overturn the world with a raise of his hand. Sky collapsing seal. The domain flipped over. Chu Yang struck out with the heaven collapsing seal, directly breaking through the domain. He rushed out, and then attacked. With a punch, the void seemed to collapse, forming an enormous vortex in the air. Soon after, resplendent rays of light shone, as if he was holding a sun in his hand, bombarding towards Huang Yarrow Young Master. Huang Yarrow Young Master hurriedly opened his mouth and spat out streaks of sword chi, all of which slashed towards Chu Yang. Shua. Chu Yang suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was shockingly behind Huang Yarrow Young Master. Desolate Demon Young Master was already prepared for Chu Yang's method, and suddenly, his domain appeared behind him. Rumble. Rumbling sounds rang out, and the surroundings trembled. It was as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting apart. Chu Yang had used an extremely huge amount of power in this attack, and it directly pierced through the domain. His hand directly passed through the domain, grabbing the back of Huang Yarrow Gongzi's neck and lifting him up. Heaven and earth fell silent in that instant. Such a powerful desolate demon prince, whose domain could break free from his physical body, was actually unable to withstand a single blow. Chu Yang erupted, immediately losing. Bang! Chu Yang did not kill Huang Yarrow Gongzi. He directly threw him at the feet of the Child of the Sea and said coldly, "I'll give you two a chance. The two of you can come at me together. Let me see how capable the two of you are. While I'm at it, I'll make you accept your loss wholeheartedly." If it was anyone else, saying such words, it would definitely be completely crazy and nonsense. Who had the qualifications to say such words to Huang Yarrow Gongzi and the Child of the Sea? Who had the qualifications to look down on these two people like this? In this eastern wilderness, who dared to speak such nonsense? However, this person was Chu Yang. Others did not have the qualifications to say such words, but he did. Others could not say such words, but he could. Chu Yang was astonishing, already far surpassing Huang Yarou Gongzi and the Child of the Sea. No one could match him. Chapter 849. I've already seen your nobility, and now it's time for me to show you my nobility. This is the hidden meaning behind your words. In other words, you don't have the right to put on airs in front of me. The Huang Yarou prince understood Chu Yang's meaning very clearly. He was very frustrated, as if he was competing with someone else in terms of wealth. He had originally thought that his wealth were unmatched, but now he was being smashed by mountains of gold and silver, and he was seeing stars. Only at this time did he suddenly realize that he was nothing but a pauper. Such a huge gap made him very uncomfortable, and he couldn't make a single sound. Chu Yang was indeed very strong, ridiculously strong. He couldn't deny it. Chu Yang was only at the ascending soul tier, and he was at the peak of the 9th level of the soul wheel tier. How many minor levels were there between the two of them? But even so, he was still defeated. In fact, in front of Chu Yang, he was as weak as a little chick. The sea god's son and the Huang Yarou prince were evenly matched. The Huang Yarou prince wasn't a match for Chu Yang, and he naturally wasn't a match for Chu Yang, either. He also felt extremely terrible. He had always been high and mighty, but now there was someone directly trampling him to the ground, and he was powerless to struggle. His arrogant self-esteem was completely shattered like a mirror. His nobility could never be perfect again. Brother Kuan, let's attack together. Desolate demon young master said this with great difficulty. The sea god's son nodded, and a sharp light suddenly burst out from his eyes. He said coldly, there will be people in the eastern wilderness who will remember that there was once a person who was above me, but they will also remember that, this person is already dead, he is a dead man. His words were as cold as ice, filled with resolute killing intent. At this moment, the Huang Yarou prince and the sea god's son, the two noblest people in the eastern wilderness, finally joined forces. Their actions were equivalent to admitting that Chu Yang was the strongest person in the eastern wilderness. At this moment, the crowd of monsters had incomparably complicated feelings. They were the sons of their king. How noble were they? But now, they had no choice but to lower their noble heads before a lowly person. They had no choice but to join forces to contend against him. In the past, they would never have thought of this. The group of demons suddenly felt an immense pressure, as if they were about to suffocate. This so-called Chu Yang might be able to dictate their life and death, as well as their fates. Many of the humans present looked at Chu Yang. He looked like he was only 12 or 13 years old. It was as if they were looking at the eastern wilderness when he was young. It was as if they could see another great emperor of the eastern wilderness about to appear in the eastern wilderness. When he reigned supreme in the eastern wilderness, a new ruler would be born in the eastern wilderness. Go, tidy up that little golden chick for me. I want to eat it later. Chu Yang released Cao Ju, Jin Duo, the silver wolf, and the other members of the Five Elements sect from the yin-yang four symbols vase. His off-key voice and inappropriate actions instantly shattered the imaginations of the monsters and the people. The Chu Yang in front of them was not the Chu Yang they had just imagined. Gaga. The parrot started to laugh strangely as soon as it appeared. Then, it started to flatter Chu Yang. My lord is indeed very resourceful. His magical power is boundless. What does a mere barren poison amount to? It's just a dog's fart. It's so bold to smell my lord. It deserves 10,000 deaths for its sin, this unscrupulous parrot. If you have the ability, go and make the desolate poison deserve 1,000 deaths. Chapter 850. However, what they didn't know was that the parrot was already cursing to the heavens in its heart. I'll fuck that fuck again. That wicked bastard is actually so savage. Even the desolate poison can't kill him. It looks like my bird's life is destined to be bleak and dark forever. The parrot, Cao Ju, and the others were kept in the yin-yang four symbols vase. They knew the situation outside very well. Of course, they were not hurt in the yin-yang four symbols vase. Chu Yang wanted to protect them, not kill them. Haha, bastard Chu, Now even the heavens can't do anything to you. You're so pure that you're invincible and lonely like snow. Great Ivildur Chu, I'll discuss it with you. Can you talk to the damned heavens and remove my name from the list of stepmothers? Don't treat me like a stepmother anymore. This is Chu Yang, our junior brother Chu. Jin Duo and the Silver Wolf laughed. They were very happy and carefree, especially when they saw King Juling and the others looking at Chu Yang with eyes full of awe. The rest of the Five Elements sect had a different reaction. They were stunned and shocked. At this moment, their faces were still full of shock and disbelief. Cao Ju looked at their expressions and reactions and exclaimed in his heart, Monster Chu is so heaven-defying this time. He was able to turn the situation around after being hit by the desolate poison. It's amazing. Cao Ju couldn't imagine this at all. After all, it was the desolate poison. Thinking back, when Cao Ju met Chu Yang for the first time in the Five Elements sect, Chu Yang was still in awe of him. But now, Cao Ju found that he was in awe of Chu Yang. Cao Ju didn't expect this. Chu Yang's rise was too fast. Everything that happened to him could be said to be legendary. Perhaps one day, the legend of Chu Yang would spread in the eastern wilderness. Cao Ju felt that he was overthinking things. Shaking his head, he smacked the back of the Five Elements sect's disciples' heads and lectured them. What are you standing there for? This is my junior brother Chu, not your junior brother Chu. Hurry up and deal with little golden chick. Look at you. Jin Duo and Silver Wolf glanced at Cao Ju without saying a word. Cao Ju glared at them and said, What? You two don't agree? Convinced. Jin Duo laughed loudly. He is your junior brother Chu, but he is my sworn brother. Boss, when you see me in the future, you have to be careful. Our identities are different. Haha, me too. Silver Wolf also laughed. He is not my junior brother Chu, but he is my Chun senior brother. With two martial brothers under one master, this young master here is the most intimidating. In the future, when you all see each other, be careful. Don't be impudent and break the rules. The people and demons present saw that the Five Elements sect's disciples were proud and did not have the slightest bit of temper. They could only be envious. This was really a case of a man reaching the Tao, his chickens and dogs rising to heaven. However, that would have to wait until Chu Yang completely detoxified the desolate poison. They heard clearly just now that Chu Yang had only temporarily resisted the desolate poison and had not completely detoxified it. However, they felt that this was just a forced self-comfort. These words came from Chu Yang's mouth. With Chu Yang's temperament, it was difficult to know whether it was true or false. The reference value was not high. It could be said that Chu Yang was already preparing to cheat them. Boom, the desolate demon prince and the son of the sea god stood side by side. Their auras burst out, as if two prehistoric beasts had awakened. It was also like two oceans worshipping each other. Two suns hung in the sky at the same time, shining brightly. The two of them adjusted to their best condition and were finally about to make a move. Chapter 851. A vast and boundless aura surged over, causing Chu Yang's sleeves and long hair to flutter even though there was no wind. A five-colored divine light suddenly flashed in his eyes. His eyes narrowed as he thought to himself, I'd like to see how capable this Huang Yarrow young master and the son of the sea god are. At this moment, he also withdrew his smile and said in a clear voice, Since the two of you are ready, then make your move. Don't waste my time. Facing such a shocking fluctuation, Chu Yang did not attack forcefully. Instead, he waited for the shocking attack that Huang Yarrow young master and the son of the sea god were preparing. This kind of boldness made everyone present admire them. This was really like an elder who wanted to test Huang Yarrow young master and the son of the sea god. How confident were they? Brother Kuan, you defend first. I'll attack. Huang Yarrow Gong's eyes erupted with a terrifying green divine light. His ink-black hand held the demonic bow, and with a light twirl, a huge vortex appeared, crazily sucking in the essence of heaven and earth. Suddenly, everyone felt that the extremely dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth was swept away in an instant. The essence of heaven and earth in the distance was crazily replenished. After the demonic bow in Huang Yaro Young Master's hand crazily swallowed the essence of heaven and earth, it became even darker. Now, even the light seemed to be swallowed. Everyone felt that as soon as their eyes fell on the demonic bow, their souls seemed to be immediately pulled out and sucked into the demonic bow. At this moment, the demonic bow seemed to be a crack in the abyss. It also seemed to be a trace of a mark left in the mortal world by hell. It was extremely frightening. The powerful aura that filled the air made people's hearts palpitate. This demonic bow is indeed not simple. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes and his gaze also fell on the demonic bow. Desolate bow, this was naturally the name given by Huang Yaro himself. The Eastern Wilderness also called this bow the bow of gods and demons. It was said that the bowstring of this demonic bow was forged from the veins of gods and demons. As for whether it was true or not, no one knew. What Chu Yang knew was, of course, from the souls of Znu and the others. In addition, it was said that Huang Yaro Young Master had two powerful bone arrows in his hands. They were refined from the bones of gods and demons as the main material. The arrows made from the bones of gods were the arrows of God. The arrows made from the bones of demons were the demon arrows. Once the demon god's arrow was unleashed, the heavens fell and the earth cracked, the sun and moon lost their light, and ghosts wailed and wolves howled. No one in the Eastern Wilderness could stop them. Even in the past, when the Eastern Wilderness faced the demon god's arrow shot out by the desolate demons, they could only avoid it. They were not a match at all. As a result, the desolate poison was created. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The son of the sea released his own domain. His domain was completely different from the domains Chu Yang had seen before. The domain seemed to be a real sea with surging waves. A huge fish was bobbing up and down in it. Every time it jumped out of the sea, it seemed to transform into a Kuan Peng and soared into the sky. On the horizon of the sea, a divine moon rose, the bright moon above the sea. Not only did the domain of the child of the sea display all types of scenes, there were even phenomena that were taking place, creating quite an astonishing sight. No matter if it was the child of the sea or the desolate demon young master, both of their domains had their own unique and astonishing aspects. This might be the reason why ordinary soul reincarnation realm experts could not be compared to them. It should also be because of their peerless talent. The desolate demon young master's domain was also released at this time. This time, his domain was applied on the demonic bow, landing in the middle of the demonic bow. It seemed to be an aiming lens. Dazzling divine light. Chapter 852. Peng peng peng. The sound of bowstrings was like firecrackers, incessantly ringing out. Incomparably dazzling arrows were constantly formed and shot out, as if they were arrows of light. Suddenly, everyone felt as if the Huang Yaro young noble was using the sun as an arrow, shooting out small suns one after another. The world suddenly lit up, and those dazzling rays of light constantly shot towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang stood in the void. Facing those arrows of light, he was like a javelin piercing through the void, not moving at all. The arrows of light were not only dazzling, they also obstructed one's vision. Before they even arrived, the temperature of the surrounding void suddenly rose, as if it was about to combust. Chu Yang clenched his hands into fists, punching out at the arrows of light flying towards him. Peng peng peng. Like a broadsword splitting wooden arrows, although Chu Yang's fists were small, they were extremely shocking. Every time a fist landed on an arrow of light, it would instantly split the arrow of light in half, causing it to explode. For a time, loud explosions rang out incessantly, and Chu Yang was completely submerged in the incomparably dazzling light. It was as if countless fireworks were being released from him, and then exploded. Specks of light collapsed and scattered, like fireworks blooming in the night sky. After a while, the light faded, and Chu Yang's figure was revealed once again. He looked at the Huang Yaro young noble and the child of the sea, and said, "This level is not enough. If this is all you've got, then you're too weak. Show me your trump card." "As you wish." The Huang Yaro young noble roared to the sky, his long green hair fluttering in the wind, as if endless grass and trees were surging in the wild wind. Then, an astonishing fluctuation rushed out from him, with him as the center. The ripples in the void were enormous, as if endless waves were surging in all directions. At the same time, on his jade-white arm, at the small arm, a world of light seemed to open up, and endless white light bloomed from there. Then, the Huang Yarrow young noble's ink-black hand reached into that world of light, as if he wanted to take out a divine object. It was so heavy that he seemed to be struggling. It was as if a god had appeared in the mortal world. Huang Yarrow Gongzi used all the strength in his body and finally took out an object from the center of the light. Then, everyone saw a short bone arrow. Although the bone arrow was small, it emitted a brilliant aura that caused people's souls to tremble. Many people and demonic beasts present unconsciously knelt down. Could it be that this arrow is really made from the bones of deities? Chu Yang's eyelids twitched. He had to use his genius martial spirit to completely erase the power of the bone arrow. Shocking, very shocking. Behind him, the desolate demon prince's movements were extremely fast. He suddenly took out the bone arrow and immediately drew his bow to shoot it. It was as if he could not withstand the bone arrow for long. After shooting the arrow, the light around his body completely disappeared. His aura was extremely weak, and even his flesh and blood had lost their luster. It was as if he had been completely drained in order to shoot this arrow. An arrow that can only be shot with all my strength. Chu Yang's heart thumped. How terrifying would such an arrow be? He did not need to guess anymore. After the Huang Yarrow young noble shot this arrow, it was as if a god was rushing through the void, flying at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Chu Yang, and was about to shoot through him and kill him. Chapter 853. An arrow that might have been refined from the bones of a god would definitely be extremely powerful. Especially since Chu Yang didn't know anything about this god's arrow, how would he dare to take it head-on? Bang! Like a golden flame, it suddenly erupted behind Chu Yang, burning fiercely. Chu Yang was already prepared. The moment Huang Yarrow young master shot out the bone arrow, a square seal like a jade seal blocked the suppression of the Emperor's Island and the heavenly rock wings. The heavenly rock wings spread open and shot out like a beam of golden light. Even so, he could still feel the sharp edge behind him. When the white light shone on his body, his clothes actually started burning. His body felt extremely hot, as if a pot of boiling water had been poured on him. What terrifying speed! Chu Yang was shocked. Once the heavenly rock wings formed by the feathers of the heavenly rock wings were used, he could clearly feel how fast it was. Not to mention other things, if he flew at full speed, his strong physical body would feel pain from the impact of the air. He would even be able to see through mountains. How fast was his speed? However, this bone arrow's speed wasn't any slower than his. This arrow is so fast. I have to race properly. Although he was shocked, Chu Yang spoke casually. He visualized the void-piercing martial soul and disappeared into the void. However, the bone arrow also flew into the void. Don't go too far. I've already pierced through a mouse hole, and you're still coming. No one had time to feel Chu Yang's playfulness. His speed was too shocking. The arrow's speed almost couldn't keep up. It had already snatched away all their eyeballs. Moreover, it was a god's arrow. Swish, swish, swish. Chu Yang kept changing directions. At one moment, he was like a huge snake flying in the sky. At another moment, he was like a flood dragon diving into the abyss. At another moment, he was like a rock spreading its wings, hating the sky, rushing straight up. At other times, he was like an eagle soaring into the sky. At other times, he was like a lion pouncing. He was constantly reducing the power of the god's arrow. This was effective, and it even had an immediate effect. Desolate Demon Prince didn't give God's arrow enough divine power, so it didn't seem to be able to unleash the full power of God's arrow. As Chu Yang kept dodging, the power of God's arrow quickly decreased. He could clearly feel that the speed of God's arrow was getting slower and slower. After a while, Chu Yang felt that it was about time. He used the 5 elements heaven circulating ring and shot out a beam of 5-colored light to capture the god's arrow. However, the god's arrow struggled fiercely, and its destructive power was shocking. In the end, Chu Yang had to use his genius martial spirit to suppress it. Boom! Such a scene threw the group of demons into chaos, and they cried out in alarm. His speed is comparable to God's arrows. He even managed to subdue God's arrow. 5-colored divine light, sweeping through everything, collecting everything. Could it be that he has truly grasped this divine ability? Does the heavens want us Yarrow to die? The arrow of divinity couldn't do anything to him, and was actually taken away by him. Why is he so heaven-defying? Why is Shao Zun so weak in front of him? The desolate demon young master and the sea god's son were once again violently shocked. With Chu Yang's astonishing speed, even if they wanted to escape, they absolutely couldn't. As for the 5-colored divine light, it made their hearts tremble. How could they not know about the 5-colored divine light? But Chu Yang had actually grasped it. No wonder he could resist the desolate poison. From this point of view, desolate demon prince and the son of the sea could somewhat understand why Chu Yang could resist the desolate poison. This arrow is very shocking. It's a pity that you can't fully unleash it. Just now, you didn't have the strength to attack at all. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would be in a miserable state. Chu Yang returned and stood in front of desolate demon prince and the son of the sea again. He spoke calmly. At the same time, Chu Yang was shocked to find that in this short period of time, desolate demon prince had already recovered 70 to 80%. Chapter 854. It's too early for you to be happy. The desolate demon prince roared angrily, "Brother Kuan, attack." At the same time, there seemed to be a hell opening on his small arm. Taking out the devil arrow, he knocked the bow and shot the arrow. The devil arrow immediately flew over, as if a devil had suddenly come from hell to the human world. On the other side, the son of the sea had already taken out a divine spear. It was extremely dark, as if there was a deep sea hook on the spear. Sea god strike. With a roar, the son of the sea stabbed the spear. The spirit chi on the tip of the spear was like seawater, turning into a poisonous dragon drill that fiercely drilled over. Wind lightning fire triple drill. Chu Yang's reaction was quick. He also drilled into the hole. This was the secret technique he had comprehended after he knocked out the burning sky saint and obtained the wind brain. Rumble. The collision of the two drills caused a shocking explosion. Amidst the explosion, the son of the sea god's spear was already thrusting towards Chu Yang. However, his target was not Chu Yang, but the space in front of him. Suddenly, a huge whirlpool appeared. Then, the whirlpool became bigger and bigger. The center of the whirlpool was as black as ink. It was like a black hole. It sucked in Chu Yang's body, making him unable to fly out. Then, the demon arrow flew over like a ray of demonic light. The son of the sea restrained him, while the desolate demon prince attacked. Chu Yang immediately understood the two's intentions. Buzz! Buzz! The yin-yang 4 symbols vase floated above his head and stopped the vortex. Swish! 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 Chu Yang threw the soul reincarnation treasures he had obtained from killing the Soul Devourer clan and the 1,000 demon sect toward the demon arrow to counteract the power of the demon arrow, but these treasures were instantly pierced through. Shield. Chu Yang used the golden origin and turned into a transformer. Behind it, the heavenly rock feathers formed a shield. Before he could use the 5 lights anti-heaven star, he shot out the 5 elements divine light and slashed at the demon arrow with a kai sound. The shield formed by the heavenly peng's feathers was directly penetrated. The golden origin behind it was also penetrated. His body was also penetrated. The demonic arrow flew out and fell to the ground, disappearing without a trace. Everything happened in an instant. The devil arrow didn't hit Chu Yang's vitals, but the moment it hit him, the resentment and evil aura of the devil race invaded his body like an army of devils. In his spiritual world, it wanted to destroy his body and corrode his soul. At this moment, Chu Yang once again felt the threat of death, and the full martial spirit was directly triggered. It was like a demon lord had appeared, and the demon soldiers and demon generals in Chu Yang's body and soul immediately submitted. The crisis came quickly and disappeared even faster. Chu Yang had been hit by the devil arrow, but he had not died. The desolate demon prince and the child of the sea god trembled in fear. Without any hesitation, the desolate demon prince cried out, "Brother Kuan, let's go." Do you still think you can escape? Chu Yang had almost died. How could he allow the desolate demon prince and the child of the sea god to escape? The heavenly Peng's feathers turned into heavenly Peng's wings. He instantly gave chase, and only then did he realize that the child of the sea god had no intention of escaping. The desolate demon prince and the child of the sea god's domains merged, and then suddenly turned into a huge fish. It suddenly leapt out of the void, like a Kuan fish leaping out of the sea and transforming into a Kuan Peng. This huge fish turned into a huge divine bird in front of Chu Yang and pounced on him. Kuan Peng? The fusion of two people's domains can actually produce such a transformation? Chu Yang's mind was instantly filled with thoughts. The child of the sea god was a huge fish that called itself a Kuan. The desolate demon prince's father had severed his original body and tried to transform into a Kuan Peng, but failed, and became a demon bird that no one knew about. The combination of the two might really be able to transform into a Kuan Peng. If it was a Kuan Peng, this attack would be dangerous. Chapter 855. Facing the giant Kuan Peng that was like a Kuan fish suddenly transforming into a Kuan Peng, Chu Yang's figure seemed incomparably small, like a rock at the foot of a mountain, but he was not afraid at all. Desolate demon prince, son of the sea, is this your last resort? Die for me. Rumble. Chu Yang pushed out his fist, and it was as if he was moving a star. It was extremely heavy, and the void rumbled. Then, thousands of dragons roared, as if a dragon country had opened, and 200 dragons rushed out. Chu Yang did not use his full strength for the eruption of the third transformation of Origin Martial and third transformation of Chi Soul. He only used 200 dragons of power, but even so, it was already extremely shocking. Previously, the 140 dragons of power had shocked everyone to the point that their nerves were numb. These 200 dragons were even more shocking. Not to mention the reaction of others, the Kuan Peng formed by desolate demon prince and son of the sea revealed an extremely shocked expression. They were completely frightened. Bang! 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 The dragons exploded one after another. In just an instant, half of the 200 dragons were destroyed, but there were still 100 dragons that were entangled with each other. A 5-colored light flashed and turned into a giant peacock. Each of its feathers was 100 feet long, and when it spread out, the world was covered in a 5-colored rainbow. It was extremely beautiful. Screech, the two let out a high-pitched cry and collided together. The void trembled, and the air fluctuated violently. The collision created huge circles of ripples, as if a star had smashed into the sea. Bang! The peacock exploded in the end, but at this time, the 100 dragons that had exploded had already condensed into a blurry figure. It seemed to be a Buddha figure, golden and resplendent, and thousands of rays of light burst out. Then, the spirit chi of the peacock's explosion also quickly merged into this huge figure. How is this possible? After the spirit chi collapses, it can be reformed again. How could desolate demon prince and son of the sea know that Chu Yang's spirit chi could change 3 times? Amitabha. A Buddhist chant resounded, and this huge Buddha figure instantly became incomparably solid, revealing its original appearance. It had 3 heads and 8 arms, and its eyes were angry, Mahamayuri. After Chu Yang had ascended to the 5th level of the second soul transformation, he could already use the Mahamayuri Dharma idol at will. At this moment, Mahamayuri seemed to have encountered a demon. His ride, the 5-colored peacock, was attacked by a demon. He was enraged and wanted to subdue the demon. Each of his 8 arms and 8 hands performed a divine art: the lotus seal, the spirit pearl seal, the Aquarius seal, the lion seal, the sky-flipping seal, the falling sky seal, and the slaughtering seal. The last hand released the 5-colored divine light. Rumble. The two collided, causing the earth to tremble and the mountains to sway and crack open. Where the two collided, it was as if a great sun had risen. The light was so dazzling that it was impossible to look at it. Then, there was a rumbling explosion, as if a mushroom cloud was rising from there. In the world, hurricanes wreaked havoc, sweeping past and sweeping away everything. It was like an invisible hand that wanted to flatten the entire world. Bang, bang, bang. The huge rocks that were swept up by the wind were constantly crumbling in midair, as if they were blooming fireworks. For the people present, the demons felt that the end of the world had arrived at this moment. They trembled in fear, and some of them were even affected and died directly. This battle was a level higher than the previous battle between Chu Yang and King Juling. Where do you think you're going? The aftermath of the explosion was still raging, but Chu Yang's angry roar could be heard. Rumble. Chapter 856. Could it be that all three of them are dead? That's not right. Judging from the sound just now, it seems like Chu Yang has the upper hand. Everyone present waited for the blinding light to disappear, and when they looked again, they saw a huge demonic bird embedded in the mountain. On the other side, Chu Yang was holding a black demonic pill in his hand as he faced off against the Son of the Sea. At this moment, the Son of the Sea was holding a cute five-colored beast in his hand, and the scene stopped just like that. That demonic bird is the Huang Yarrow Prince. The Huang Yarrow Prince is dead. The demonic pill in Chu Yang's hand is the Huang Yarrow Prince's demonic pill. The Son of the Sea is using the five-colored beast to threaten Chu Yang. Although no one had seen what had happened, they quickly imagined the general situation in their minds. Huang Yarrow Gongzi and the Sea God's child had both been defeated. Huang Yarrow Gongzi was dead, and the Sea God's child was still at death's door. As for the five-colored beast, there weren't many people in the eastern wilderness who didn't know that it was related to Chu Yang. Let me go, or else, the Son of the Sea's voice paused, and he suddenly exerted force in his hand, tearing off a piece of flesh from Lil Guari's body. Blood dripped down. Lil Guari cried out in pain, but it seemed to know that it wasn't good to do so, so it stopped crying. However, its crystal-like eyes were filled with tears. Chu Yang's pupils shrank. This little beast probably hadn't experienced such cruelty yet. Do you think you can kill it? Crack crack. Chu Yang directly swallowed the demonic pill of the Huang Yarrow Prince. He chewed on the demonic pill, making people's hair stand on end and shudder. Chu Yang finally understood why he couldn't see Lil Guari. After the Huang Yarrow Prince and the Son of the Sea entered Emperor Island, they must have been frantically searching for him. Lil Guari could be said to be his name card. If he didn't hide well enough, how could he escape? Before you kill it, I guarantee that you will be dead. The cold voice caused the sea god's son's eyes to tremble. Then, he threw the piece of Guari's flesh to Chu Yang. Why don't you give it a try? As you wish. As soon as Chu Yang finished speaking, he disappeared into thin air. The Child of the Sea immediately tensed up, and Lil Guari's eyes rolled back into their sockets. However, there was a muffled thump, and everyone saw that the Child of the Sea had been violently sent flying. Only then did they see Chu Yang's figure. Chu Yang sent the Child of the Sea flying, crashing through mountain after mountain. Loud rumbling sounds rang out continuously, and the entire mountain range in a straight line shook violently. Behind him, the little beast was still coughing desperately. Chu Yang quickly returned, dragging a huge fish behind him. At this moment, Chu Yang's entire body was charred black. It seemed as if he had just been struck by lightning. There were 2 clusters of small flames jumping on the clothes on his shoulders. Everyone's pupils couldn't help but tremble when they saw this. What kind of speed was that? What kind of speed was that to be able to break through the protection of the spirit chi outside his body? The friction between his body and the air was burning. As for how Chu Yang had saved the little beast, everyone now completely understood. It was very simple. He had concealed himself, exploded with a terrifying speed, and directly crashed into the little beast. During this period, Chu Yang had to avoid the little beast. Otherwise, the little beast would have been smashed to death. With such speed, not only could he smash someone to death, but he could also scare them to death. And it was clear that Chu Yang couldn't control such a terrifying speed. The truth was more or less the same. The heavenly rock's wings, the magical power of the path to heaven, and the explosive speed of 6 times the speed, naturally overlapped. However, Chu Yang himself was unable to control the explosive speed. He couldn't control the speed of the heavenly rock wings alone. Chu Yang's cold gaze swept over King Juling, the winged tiger king, and the little three-eyed king, causing their livers to tremble. Do you still need me to make a move? Chu Yang said, and the world suddenly froze. No one knew how King Juling and the others felt, but in an instant, everyone's hearts trembled, and they were so scared that they trembled. Kill yourselves. Chapter 857. Chu Yang, if you kill us, my father will definitely not let you go. If you kill me, you will also die. In this Emperor Island, you are indeed invincible, but what about outside of the Emperor Island? This was the threat of King Juling, Winged Tiger King, and Little Three-Eyed King. They were also begging for mercy. King Juling was scared, Winged Tiger King was scared, and Little Three-Eyed King was trembling. Originally, they were so proud that no one was worthy of their attention. But now, in front of Chu Yang, they were trembling, wagging their tails, and begging for mercy. They had abandoned their dignity and pride. The difference between before and after was so great that it was disdainful. However, such thoughts were quickly extinguished. That depended on who it was. King Juling and the other's opponent was Chu Yang. In the past, they were very strong, and they had the right to be arrogant. Thus, there was nothing wrong with their previous conduct. After all, that was before all the shocking events of today had happened. It could be said that in front of a figure like Chu Yang, there was no shame in being afraid and begging for mercy. Because this was how it should be. The weak would submit to the strong. King Juling and the others had just threatened Chu Yang. It could even be said that they were completely worthy of their previous arrogance. This is just right. I can eat the braised lion's head again. Your father has been raising it for a long time, so the meat should be even better. He was really treating the 9-headed lion race as chickens, ducks, and pigs. However, no one could refute such words. After leaving the Emperor Island, if Chu Yang killed King Juling's father, no one would be too surprised. Peng! A muffled sound broke everything. Chu Yang attacked, and King Juling was instantly killed. Winged Tiger King roared angrily, but was immediately killed. Little Three-Eyed King could not escape, either. Revenge for those who have grievances, revenge for those who have grievances, Chu Yang said loudly to the humans present. Kill your way back in the same way that the demonic beasts killed you just now. When the demonic beasts heard this, they were instantly thrown into chaos. They fled for their lives. Everyone was startled awake and chased after them. Instantly, the sounds of battle rang out. This no longer had anything to do with Chu Yang. When he looked at little Guari, he saw that the little fellow was already alive and kicking. It had completely forgotten that it was in so much pain that it wanted to cry. It was even crying out for him to release the demonic beasts. Chu Yang wasn't in a good mood. He couldn't stand its heartless, naive, and pure appearance. He slapped its head and lectured, I don't have anything against the demon race, but I have to teach them a lesson. If they do something wrong, they have to pay the price. On Emperor Island, the demon clan had besieged the hunter clan twice in a row. If he did not teach them a lesson, the demon clan would think that the human clan could be bullied. Also, you've forgotten the pain before the scar is healed. You've never learned your lesson. Chu Yang's voice became increasingly stern, but when he saw Xiao Guari's head droop, he was completely speechless. Boss, this has nothing to do with me. My treachery, viciousness, treachery, and cunning have all been defeated by someone's naivety and naivety. I really can't do anything about it. When Little Five heard Chu Yang's stern tone, he immediately apologized for himself. At the same time, he cooperated with Chu Yang to teach Xiao Guari a lesson. This was a very good opportunity to teach Xiao Guari a lesson. This time, if not for Chu Yang's ability, Xiao Guari would have fallen into the sea god's hands. That would have been really troublesome. Little Five thought about it and felt a lingering fear. When Little Six heard Little Five's words, he immediately understood and cooperated. Boss, your words are extremely incisive. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate. I can't do anything about it either. Yaa. Xiao Guari stomped his feet and retaliated. You're the naive and naive one. You're the pig-like teammate. Chapter 858. Bitter medicine cures the illness, and harsh advice helps the action. Little 6 and Little 5 cooperated well, and also said, "Little Guari, you should be more careful. This time, it's all thanks to Boss, or else we wouldn't have known this." Little Guari didn't say anything this time. Chu Yang looked at Little 5 and Little 6 in his mind, and found that the two of them were also completely speechless. These few words were practically too much for the little guy to accept, and it suffered a heavy blow. He could only end it hastily. "Little Guari, not bad this time, you know how to talk back." Suddenly, he thought of that parrot, and his eyes lit up. Letting this unscrupulous parrot fight with Little Guari should have a great effect. "Little Guari, come here. Little Guari, you wicked bastard, you actually gave this divine bird such a name." The parrot was instantly enraged, but it still trotted over. "Omnipotent and boundless boss, what orders do you have? Let me introduce you." Chu Yang pointed at Little Guari. "This is your big brother, call him Big Brother." The parrot wanted to die. It had a big brother for no reason, and it was a very foolish and naive big brother. When Chu Yang was teaching Little Guari a lesson, it saw it clearly. "Heavens, send down a bolt of lightning and strike this wicked bastard to death." The parrot wailed in its heart, and then said to Little Guari in a flattering manner, "Big brother, yaya." Little Guari was instantly overjoyed, and immediately picked up the parrot, and spun it around. "Oh my heavens, this divine bird has actually been reduced to being a little brother to a little immature. I really don't want to live anymore." The parrot's heart was really gloomy, and its heart was filled with shadows, which covered an extremely large area. After that, it was the 5 Elements sect's bonfire feast. The demonic bird Huang Yaro Gongzi and the large fish son of the sea god were not only delicious, but their flesh could also be said to be precious medicine, and was definitely very nutritious. The 9 Spirit King, the Winged Tiger King, and the others were not bad either. The only pity was that the little 3-eyed king was in human form. Generally speaking, everyone in the 5 Elements sect believed that Chu Yang did not eat human forms. After a round of joy, Chu Yang handed over the square imprints of the Eastern Wilderness's Great Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal to Cao Ju and the others. He also said goodbye to Cao Ju and the others, lying that he was going to find the antidote to the desolate poison. Cao Ju and the others were so worried about some bastards that Chu Yang didn't dare to set things right and tell the truth. In the end, he could only say that the desolate poison couldn't do anything to him, so they didn't need to worry and left. After leaving, there was no news about Chu Yang. No one had seen him on Emperor Island. After the initial calm, the competition on Emperor Island soon became fierce, especially in the center of Emperor Island. At the center of Emperor Island was a royal palace. There were many puppet guards, and the test was quite simple: they had to break into the royal palace. Whoever could break into the deepest part of the royal palace would pass the test of the Eastern Wilderness's great emperor. They would have to face the desolate demon and the so-called sea god and kill them, and they would receive the inheritance of the Eastern Wilderness's great emperor. The strength of the puppets was extremely strong. Cao Ju and the others had at most made it to the third last test. As for the people of the Eastern Wilderness and the many demonic beasts, only a few made it to the last test, and they were not famous. However, no one could pass the last test. What surprised everyone and all the demonic beasts was that Chu Yang didn't appear from the beginning to the end. It was as if Chu Yang had no interest in the inheritance of the Eastern Wilderness's great emperor. This was naturally impossible. Chu Yang must have entered Emperor Island for the inheritance of the Eastern Wilderness's great emperor. Therefore, they all thought that Chu Yang had been poisoned by the desolate poison. Either his life was in danger, or his condition was extremely bad, so he had to give up. Naturally, no one knew the specifics. Emperor Island had been open for almost a month. Because no one had passed the test, Emperor Island disappeared again. After Cao Ju and the others left Emperor Island, they didn't leave. However, when Emperor Island closed completely and disappeared completely, Chu Yang still hadn't come out. Xiao Guari and the unscrupulous parrot didn't appear either. They couldn't help but feel gloomy. Chu Yang must be dead. Even if he's not dead, he must be locked in Emperor Island. I don't know when Emperor Island will open again. A few decades or 100 years. This Chu Yang is useless. What bullshit, number one person in the eastern wilderness. After hearing a lot of rumors, the silver wolf was so enraged that it attacked and taught those people a ruthless lesson. He's a monster. Emperor Island can't trap him. We don't need to worry about him. Come, let's go back. Chapter 859. How could Chu Yang possibly die? As for the closing of Emperor Island, he wasn't worried at all. He had used the reincarnation gourd to collect the souls of Nu Yi, Nu Nu San, Desolate Demon Prince, and the Son of the Sea. His understanding of Emperor Island was almost unparalleled. He even knew clearly that the Desolate Demon and the so-called Sea God had an affair. The so-called Sea God was indeed a Kuan fish, and she was female. The Desolate Demon was male, and the Son of the Sea God was actually born from the two of them. The Desolate Demon Prince and the Son of the Sea God were brothers. Their goal was simple. They wanted to give birth to a baby Kuan Peng in hopes of obtaining the secret of the Kuan Peng and becoming a Kuan Peng. However, they didn't succeed in the end. Chu Yang didn't appear to challenge the test and fight for the inheritance of the Great Emperor in the Eastern Wilderness because he didn't want to waste time. The Great Emperor in the Eastern Wilderness had actually left a back door for his descendants. As long as they could withstand the desolate poison, they would be able to enter the center of Emperor Island. At this moment, Chu Yang finally knew why the descendants of the Great Emperor in the Eastern Wilderness couldn't pass this test. The desolate poison was too terrifying. If Chu Yang didn't have the reincarnation revolution, how could he withstand the desolate poison that was similar to being worn down by time? Of course, he naturally passed the test of the desolate poison successfully. After that, when he faced the desolate demon and the sea god suppressed by the Eastern Wilderness Pagoda, Chu Yang didn't need to put in much effort because he had the genius martial soul and the fool martial soul. Chu Yang used the two and fell into a deep sleep. This deep sleep lasted until the entire Emperor Island closed, but he still didn't wake up. About 7 days after the Emperor Island was closed, Chu Yang finally woke up. He had experienced the feeling of being in a trance and not knowing what year it was. He had experienced it many times. Very soon, he got rid of it and felt the changes in his body. When he first felt the genius martial soul and the fool martial soul, he saw two balls, a ball of light and a ball of darkness. They turned into two balls, the chaos turned into a world, and the two martial souls turned into two small dimensions. The third transformation is the world transformation. This was very reasonable, but Chu Yang didn't like it at first. He missed the genius martial spirit and the fool martial spirit more. Although the two balls looked very intimidating at first glance, after such a transformation, the many troubles during cultivation were directly thrown to the two martial spirits for them to deal with. After that, they would be done after a night's sleep, which meant that there would be no more problems. For example, this time, if he were to absorb the desolate demon and sea deity's source and wipe out their final consciousness, who knew how much effort he would have to expend? How could it be so simple and just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor? Let's wait and see. After completing the third transformation, Chu Yang wasn't the least bit happy, but when his consciousness entered the two balls, he immediately shouted, "My genius martial spirit, my idiot martial spirit. It's great that you didn't leave me behind. I'm almost crying." At this moment, the genius martial spirit and the fool martial spirit had both undergone great changes, especially the fool martial spirit. The fool martial spirit didn't have the slightest trace of foolishness. At first glance, darkness, evil, destruction, slaughter, blood, coldness, and ruthlessness, and many other shocking auras rushed over. The devil chi around him surged, as if he was the ruler of darkness, the ruler of evil, the ruler of slaughter, and so on. However, these were not enough to describe him. Only one word could describe him: devil. The fool martial spirit had become the devil martial spirit. The genius martial spirit had also undergone great changes. Light, holiness, redemption, and so on, everything was the opposite of the fool martial spirit. The fool martial spirit had become the devil martial spirit, and the genius martial spirit had naturally become the god martial spirit. Genius and fool, god and devil. After Chu Yang's consciousness came into contact with the two martial spirits, all the changes became even more clear. Just as he thought, the genius martial spirit and the fool martial spirit had undergone changes in form, transforming into a god and a devil. He was now at the peak of the third transformation 9th level of the ascending soul realm, and the third transformation soul ascending soul realm was completely completed. However, the first thing he felt was not the changes after the transformation of the two martial spirits, but whether the two martial spirits still had their original abilities. Chapter 860. Haha, this young master is invincible now. The more he thought about it, the happier he became. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh loudly. His voice was so loud that it woke up Xiao Guori and the others from their slumber. When Xiao Guori woke up, it discovered that it had increased by one level of the soul wheel realm. It was so excited that it started to cry out. The parrot had also increased in strength and was about to break through to the spirit realm. The wings that were cut off had also grown out. The original 3-colored feathers had now turned into 9-colored feathers that were evenly distributed. It looked extremely dazzling and had an extremely powerful aura. With Chu Yang's help, it had absorbed the desolate demon and sea god's source energy. It had obviously increased in strength, but it wasn't happy at all. It sighed, "I'm so envious of 5th brother and 6th brother. I really want to die." Soon after, the parrot went completely crazy and cried out strangely. As for the so-called 5th brother and 6th brother, although Chu Yang didn't understand, he instantly understood that it should be Xiao Wu and Xiao Liu. Yah. Xiao Guori's excitement also disappeared. It acted like the parrot and cried out together with it, "I really want to die." Its cry was even more miserable than the parrot's because it wasn't the first time it had experienced this. Gaga. Xiao Wu's laughter came from Chu Yang's body. It was extremely proud. "Little cheap, little Guori, Xiao Liu and I have already reached the 3rd cycle of divine soul after following boss. Are you envious? Haha. No, 5th brother." Xiao He also said proudly, "It's the 4th cycle. 1st cycle of reincarnation, 2nd cycle of chaos, 3rd cycle of world, and 4th cycle of divine demon. Although we haven't reached the 4th cycle, we have to show that boss is omnipotent." Gaga. 5th brother, 6th brother, it's a pity that you're still 2 damn monkeys. The parrot was envious and directly poked at their shortcomings, causing Xiao Wu and Xiao Liu to immediately become angry. When Chu Yang heard this, he immediately took out 2 desolate demon eggs and said, "Do you want to turn into desolate demons and use these eggs to be reborn?" Gaga. Little 5 and little 6's anger immediately turned to joy, and they laughed strangely. "Boss is incomparably wise, that is a must, but please rest assured, we will definitely maintain our pure nature. Monkeys will be monkeys, we will definitely do our best to transform the wild egg's origin." When Chu Yang saw how eager little Guori and the parrot were, he threw one each to the 2 dogs. "Keek, boss's martial prowess is boundless." The parrot immediately began to flatter the heavens, but Lil Guori was hesitating whether or not to eat it. It seemed that eating the desolate demon egg was the same as eating a cutie. It felt very guilty. Chu Yang ignored him and temporarily did not feel the changes in his 2 martial spirits. Since he could not escape, the most important thing now was to confirm if the desolate demon and sea god were completely dead. The result was self-evident. To be precise, Chu Yang was very surprised. Not only had he completed the 3rd transformation of his divine soul, but his 2 martial spirits had also undergone a transformation. The amount of energy required for this was beyond his imagination. In other words, the origin of the desolate demon and sea god was actually able to support such a transformation. Chu Yang was very surprised. Looks like this desolate demon and sea god were incomparably powerful, at least in the soul fusion realm. Then the great emperor of the eastern wilderness must also be incomparably powerful, so the inheritance he left behind. Chu Yang was on the verge of drooling. He rushed over without a care in the world and tried to take the eastern wasteland's pagoda. However, the moment he touched the eastern wasteland's pagoda, he felt as if he was an ant trying to move a mountain. What level of treasure is this? I can't collect it. Chu Yang's mind was shaken. Therefore, all of his joy disappeared and was replaced by horror. "Master, this eastern wilderness tower is a saint tool, not to mention this abrupt voice. But the two words divine tool had made Chu Yang feel as if he had been struck by lightning. His entire body froze in a split second. Saint tool. It was actually a saint tool. He was only in the ascending soul realm now, and he did not know how far away he was from the saint realm or saint realm. Little Guari, Little 5, and Little 6 were all stunned. Only the parrot did not move at all. It was not surprised at all, obviously it already knew. When the Emperor Island Guardian's face that looked like it was carved out of a metal plate appeared in front of Chu Yang's eyes seemed to have found focus, and he looked at the Emperor Island Guardian in a daze. After a while, Chu Yang recovered and asked, "Are you sure it's a saint tool?" "Master, there's no mistake. It really is a saint tool." When Chu Yang heard this, he started counting with his fingers: Spirit Stage, Soul Fusion Realm, Transcendence Realm, Nirvana Realm, Life and Death Realm. Chu Yang counted the specific cultivation realms that he knew from the souls of Slave 1 and the other 2, and found that he was still 5 realms away from the Saint realm. Every realm had 9 levels, so if he counted it this way, it would be 45 small realms. The Saint realm, this was simply too far away for Chu Yang. It was not something he could reach at the moment. "I can definitely reach it too." Immediately, he thought of his fiancée, the East Continent, and then fixed his thoughts on the 5 elements divine child of the 5 elements sect. He suddenly shouted, "How long have I been asleep? Please don't let the bet pass half a year, or I'll be embarrassed." He began to calculate again in his mind. He had been delayed in Jinyuan City for about 2 months, and he had spent another month in Sea Demon City. All in all, it was possible that time had really passed. Chapter 861. Chu Yang was not surprised by Emperor Island's Guardian's appearance. After all, Chu Yang had already touched the core of Emperor Island. How could Emperor Island's Guardian not notice him? After his conversation with Emperor Island's Guardian, he had a better understanding of Emperor Island and the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor. Firstly, that parrot was indeed the descendant of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor's companion. It had hatched from its egg around the same time as the desolate demon prince. Its talent was definitely not bad. It had a unique divine ability. In Chu Yang's words, it was a copy divine ability. This divine ability was formed by the parrot imitating the language of the tongue. It was an extremely shocking divine ability. It was also the parrot's talent. Chu Yang even wanted to eat the parrot. Secondly, the protector of Emperor Island wasn't a human. To be exact, it wasn't a puppet either. It was the most loyal servant of the great emperor of the Eastern Wasteland. After he died, his soul entered the puppet so that he could continue to protect Emperor Island. Such a loyal servant made Chu Yang feel deep respect for him. As for Emperor Island, it was actually a small dimension world. It was refined by the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor to suppress the desolate demons and the sea god. The inheritance of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor had mostly been taken away by the descendants of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor. Emperor Island's Guardian did not stop them as long as the descendants of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor did not touch the core of Emperor Island and affect the suppression of the desolate demons and the sea god. In his opinion, the true inheritance of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor was to suppress the desolate demons and the sea god and to protect the will of the Eastern Wilderness. Everything else was nothing. The origins of the desolate demons and the sea god, as well as the Eastern Wilderness Pagoda, represented everything. Chu Yang had finally killed the desolate demons and the sea god. Of course, in his opinion, that was the true successor of the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor. That was why he regarded Chu Yang as his leader. Chu Yang wanted to extract the Emperor Island Guardian's soul from the puppet, but the Emperor Island Guardian refused. He said that he would wait until Chu Yang unified the Eastern Wilderness and had a loyal servant to replace him. For such a person, Chu Yang had nothing but admiration. Such a fool was definitely not common in this world. Chu Yang had learned from the Guardian of Emperor Island how long he had been asleep. All in all, there were still 15 days left before the half-year bet between him and the 5 elements divine child. That was more than enough time. After understanding everything, Chu Yang continued to comprehend the changes in his body. Needless to say, the saber sword martial spirit and the flood dragon martial spirit, after the reincarnation, primal chaos, and divine demon third revolution, these three martial spirits were incomparably strong, ordinary people could not compare to them. As for the transformation of the two martial spirits, needless to say, it was an earth-shattering transformation. Let's determine my combat strength first. The divine demon martial spirit is on the way. I can slowly comprehend it. Chu Yang brought Xiao Guari, Xiao Gui, and the Emperor Island Guardian to the foot of a mountain. As soon as he stopped, he said, "Xiao Gui, come over here and try taking my punch." "Forget it. Do you think this divine bird can survive after taking your punch? You're just a bird that wants to kill. You bastard, you're so wicked that you'll dig up your ancestors' graves." The parrot was so scared that it almost peed its pants and wanted to cry. It wasn't the strongest here. The Emperor Island Guardian was. "Master, I, Xiao Gui, am willing to die for you at any time. I'm just a weak bird. Once you use your power, I'll be turned into ashes immediately. It doesn't matter if I die, but I'm so weak that I can't display your power. It's a great blasphemy to you, so I refuse." Chu Yang had previously struck out with 200 dragon strength, and the parrot had seen it clearly. Now, Chu Yang was so wicked that smoke was coming out of his mouth. He had absorbed the desolate demon and the sea god's origin energy, and had even killed these two giants. Who knew how strong this wicked person was? With this punch, even if it didn't die, it would be crippled. Xiao Guari listened to the parrot's shameless words. Its crystal-like eyes kept sizing up the parrot as if it was looking at a weirdo. Chapter 862. You've already received Xiao Guari's punch. It makes sense for you to reject my punch. At this moment, the parrot really wanted to hug Xiao Guari and kiss it. Master is wise. I will definitely not disappoint Master's expectations. I will ask my brother to be more careful. While Xiao Guari was protesting, Chu Yang's punch landed on the mountain. Instantly, the earth shook and the mountain shook. Rocks rolled and dust filled the sky. A terrifying crack appeared on the mountain. Behind Chu Yang, there were 200 phantoms of dragons that were surging. 200 dragons' strength. Without using the Origin Marshal's third cycle and the third cycle of the Aura Soul, I already possess 200 dragons' strength. Chu Yang was a bit surprised, but after thinking about it, it made sense. After reaching the second cycle of the Ascended Soul Realm, his body would gain 10 dragons' strength for every stage. 9 stages meant 90 dragons' strength. After reaching the third cycle of the Ascended Soul Realm, his chaotic physique would turn into a divine physique. It wasn't strange for him to gain 10 dragons' strength for every stage. In total, he would have 180 dragons' strength. As for the remaining 20 dragons' strength, he didn't know where it came from. 50 dragons' strength is enough to fight against a soul reincarnation stage 1. However, if I fight against a spirit realm stage 1, it would increase by 10 times. That would be 500 dragons' strength. After that, when I fight against the other 8 stages of the spirit realm, each stage would increase by 1000 dragons' strength. The soul reincarnation stage was a leap, and the spirit realm was even more so. Previously, Chu Yang's only method to fight against a spirit realm stage was a rank 5 array. Now that he calculated, he could probably fight against a spirit realm stage 2. Origin Marshal's third cycle, Aura Soul's third cycle. Now that he had completed the third cycle of the Divine Soul, he should be able to unleash 9 times the power. With 200 dragons' strength and 9 times the power, he would have 1800 dragons' strength. Adding on his other methods, he would have no problem fighting against a spirit realm stage 2. According to his past experience with the Origin Martial Realm and Aura Soul Realm, he could kill enemies that were many stages higher. Right now, he could kill a spirit realm stage 2 or even a spirit realm stage 3 or 4. I'll know when I try it in the future. Chu Yang turned his head and said to Xiao Guari and the parrot, "The two of you, retreat a bit." Whoosh. Little Guari was a bit slow to react, but when the parrot heard this, it immediately flew thousands of meters away. Then, it began to flatter Chu Yang. "Boss, you're so powerful. If you don't accept that mountain, you're going to be crushed. Blow up the mountain in front of us." "Good suggestion." Bang. Chu Yang took a step forward and threw a punch at the mountain before him. In an instant, the void behind him exploded. It was as if tens of thousands of dragons were roaring at the same time. The densely packed dragons filled the void behind him as their roars resounded. Seeing this, the parrot stuck out its 3-meter-long tongue. Lil Guari's crystal-like eyes also bulged. Even the Emperor Island's guardian was emitting a powerful spiritual wave. Little 5 and Little 6 were no exception. Rumble. However, they were not shocked for too long. Like a sudden clap of thunder, a deafening sound that seemed to tear the sky apart resounded throughout the entire Emperor Island. Then, the parrot, Lil Guari, and the others saw a huge cloud of dust rising into the sky. It was as if a huge sandstorm had swept over from afar. When the dust settled and the parrot looked over, it lost its self-control and cursed out loud, "My circles and crosses. This divine bird was just trying to flatter you. This wicked bird actually blew up this mountain. God, you're too biased. Why did you raise this immoral person like your own son and take me as your stepmother?" If it was any other time, the parrot would have immediately realized that it had lost its composure and corrected itself. However, it was still clamoring. Lil Guari was petrified. Little 5 and Little 6 were unable to utter a single word of flattery for a long time. Needless to say, the Emperor Island's guardian was even more shocked. Its puppet body and metal face almost revealed a shocked expression. "Oh my God, this is simply too fierce." When Little 5's voice emerged from Chu Yang's body, the parrot saw a pair of beautiful eyes staring at it. It only then knew that it was in trouble. It had just poured out all its true thoughts. It was not an exaggeration to say that the pair of eyes were beautiful. After Chu Yang returned to his original size, his appearance was simply a masterpiece of God's painstaking efforts. "Master, please spare my life." The parrot's tongue was almost tied up. However, it was useless. Chu Yang attacked and the parrot's feathers were instantly plucked by Chu Yang. It looked like a chicken that was about to be stewed. "Yah!" Lil Guari cried out, "Don't kill my brother." Chapter 863. Although Emperor Island was closed, Chu Yang would not have any difficulty leaving. The guardian of Emperor Island could open a passage for him and even make Emperor Island appear again. In addition, the descendants of the great emperor in the eastern wilderness had a special portal to enter and exit Emperor Island. The eastern wilderness was not small. It was very vast. There was a long distance between the Sea Demon City and the Five Elements sect. However, this was for ordinary people. For Chu Yang, who had the heavenly rock wings, this distance was not very far. The heavenly rock wings spread out. In less than half a day, he had returned to the Five Elements sect. He landed in his own small courtyard. The golden light flashed and broke through the sky. Naturally, it startled many people in the Five Elements sect, especially many elders of the Five Elements sect. In a small dimension of the Five Elements sect, Qian Aoshue was acting like a spoiled child in front of a white-haired elder. The moment Chu Yang returned to the Five Elements sect, the smile on the old man's face suddenly froze, and his expression became slightly stunned. "Grandpa, what are you thinking? Are you going to give me the Five Elements ribbon or not?" Qian Aoshue's iceberg-like face actually revealed the expression of a little girl. Naturally, there was no one who could make Qian Aoshue call grandpa. There were even fewer people who could be so intimate. This elder was the Taishang elder of the Five Elements sect, Qian Aoshue's grandfather. The Taishang elder's gaze was faint. It penetrated the small dimension he was in and landed on the Five Elements sect. He looked at the courtyard where Chu Yang was and muttered to himself, "He is back." The desolate poison really did not trouble him. This little guy is not only good at causing trouble, but also very frightening. The desolate poison? Qian Aoshue immediately thought of a bastard. But how could it be? Emperor Island was closed. How could that bastard come out? She did not believe it. Then, she thought of this trip to Emperor Island. Chu Yang had turned into a 7 or 8-year-old child and said she was his idol's woman. This meant that Chu Yang had said she was his woman. Qian Aoshue's face suddenly turned red and feverish. Especially when she was in the Sea Demon City, she was spanked by a bastard as a child. She was a prideful person. It would have been safer for her to follow her seniors and juniors from the Five Elements sect on Emperor Island. However, she had chosen to explore on her own at that time. Later on, she had heard all the things that had shocked her. The little brat was actually Chu Yang. The descendants of the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness were so vicious, and so scheming. None of the Fey race's geniuses were a match for Chu Yang. Chu Yang actually didn't die from the desolate poison. This was the most ridiculous thing. Although Chu Yang killing the desolate demon prince and the child of the sea god was shocking, it was not as shocking as the desolate poison. If that was all, it would have been fine. However, ever since she heard that Chu Yang had not been completely cured of the desolate poison and was desperately searching for an antidote, she heard that Chu Yang had been trapped on Emperor Island and had not come out. She realized that she had been a little absent-minded during that period of time. If not for the distant past, just now, when Grand Elder suddenly mentioned the desolate poison and said that he had returned, her heart could not help but tremble. Grand Elder came back to his senses. Qian Aoshue, on the other hand, was lost in her own thoughts and complicated feelings. She was angry and happy at the same time. She gritted her teeth and suddenly revealed a trace of gentleness. There was also a bashful look on her face. How could Grand Elder not understand what was going on? Enemies will always be enemies. Chapter 864. The Grand Elder was not the only one who sensed Chu Yang's return. Similarly, in a secret realm, when the Silver Wolf was talking nonsense in front of an old man, the old man was also stunned. Then, he said, "Your senior brother is back." Senior brother? The Silver Wolf thought of Chu Yang but felt that it was impossible. Your senior brother is back this time. I'm afraid the Five Elements sect will be turned upside down. Hearing this, the Silver Wolf smiled and said to the old man, "Master, which senior brother of mine is so intimidating?" The Silver Wolf addressed the old man in this way. Naturally, the old man's identity was obvious: Elder Gold. Thud. The Golden Elder knocked on the Silver Wolf's head and lectured, "How many senior brothers do you have?" "My senior brother, that bastard Chu, the great demon Chu?" The Silver Wolf was slightly stunned. "Master, you went to find the mistresses yesterday. Are you so tired that your eyesight is blurry now?" "My senior brother is now in confinement on Emperor Island. The Baron Poison can't do anything to him." "Can Emperor Island do anything to him?" Elder Gold said, "Silly boy, your senior brother might not even care about your enemies in the East Continent in the future." As he spoke, Elder Gold's voice became faint, as if he was reminiscing. Such a talent, not to mention the Eastern Wilderness, even in the East Continent and the Central Continent, there are only a handful of them. They are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Elder Gold was naturally from the Eastern Wilderness. However, when he was young, of course, he also yearned for the East Continent. Naturally, he had also been to the East Continent. He was the one who brought the Silver Wolf back from his travels in the East Continent. The Silver Wolf's identity was mysterious. He did not even have a name. He was only called Silver Wolf for a reason. Elder Gold was very cautious. He even hid the Silver Wolf's name. Enemy. The Silver Wolf's mischievous expression completely disappeared. It was as if a distant memory had been opened. It was as if it had become extremely unfamiliar. However, when he touched it again, the bloody scene in his memory rushed to him. His handsome face immediately became ferocious every time. But in the blink of an eye, all of this disappeared. Silver Wolf once again smiled mischievously. "Master, how can we use other people for revenge? Also, you're underestimating your disciple too much. Isn't it just a small matter of revenge? I'll settle it in minutes." "You're ambitious." As soon as Elder Gold finished speaking, Wen Yinlang smirked and said, "However, I'm following my senior brother. If I attract those bastards here, they will definitely anger my senior brother. At that time, my senior brother will go berserk. Hey, get lost." The Silver Wolf was sent flying with a kick, but it laughed loudly. "Master, I'll party at my senior brother's place tonight." I'll try to get some kuan fish from my senior brother and bring it back for you to try. Then, he exited Elder Gold's secret realm and appeared in the Five Elements sect. He shouted, "Senior brother, I'm here for you, haha." The laughter resounded throughout the Five Elements sect. Everyone in the Five Elements sect heard it. Those who recognized Silver Wolf were shocked. Silver Wolf's senior brother? Isn't that Chu Yang? Could it be that Chu Yang is back? They were in disbelief and shock. At the same time, Cao Ju also learned about Chu Yang's return from his father. He and Jin Duo laughed loudly and flew to Chu Yang's courtyard. Saint Sun Zither did not have a strong divine sense like the Grand Elder and Elder Gold, but he had the yin-yang four symbols vase. The moment Chu Yang returned to the Five Elements sect, he immediately sensed the yin-yang four symbols vase. He was delighted. Could it be that little brother is back? When Chu Yang returned to the Five Elements sect, the 10 Peak Masters of the Outer 10 Peaks, Sui Yunfu, Long Feiqi, and Du Guangbua, as well as the 5 Peak Masters of the Inner 5 Peaks, and the Sect Master of the Five Elements sect all sensed Chu Yang's return. As for the entire Five Elements sect, when they heard the news, they were completely shocked. They burst into cheers and exclamations. Especially the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the crowd of the East Arrival Pavilion. They were the most ecstatic. Chapter 865. Saint Child Zither Sound, Silver Wolf, Cao Ju, Jin Duo, and the others appeared in front of Chu Yang almost immediately after he returned to the Five Elements sect. They all laughed heartily and retorted at Chu Yang. The main point was naturally Chu Yang's appearance. His appearance was more exquisite and beautiful than a woman's, which made them envious and jealous. Chu Yang didn't have the strength to retort. This wasn't what he wanted. So, they immediately besieged him again. While they were laughing and fooling around, Chu Yang's courtyard was completely surrounded. There was a sea of people, and the walls of the courtyard collapsed because of the crowd. This was not the end. There was still a tide of people coming in wave after wave. As a result, Chu Yang's courtyard had no place to stand. The air was also densely packed with people. Junior Brother Chu, are you really back? What Junior Brother Chu? Be careful. Call him Senior Brother Chu. Oh, yes. Thank you for the reminder. With so many people gathered, it was inevitable that there would be a lot of discussion. Of course, there were also people who doubted whether it was true. This was because it was too shocking. Chu Yang had been poisoned and had not died. Emperor Island was closed, and Chu Yang could still come out. Could Chu Yang have obtained the inheritance of Emperor Island? There were many questions. The people of Five Elements sect had too many questions in their hearts. At this moment, when they discussed Chu Yang and talked about Chu Yang's past deeds, they could not help but exclaim in shock. Chu Yang had caused a ruckus in Five Elements sect, angered the Guardian Elder, and killed the Peak Master. In the eyes of the people of Five Elements sect, it was already extremely impressive. It was simply heaven-defying. However, they did not expect that Chu Yang would be even more frightening after leaving Five Elements sect. First, Chu Yang killed the Wei Kingdom's princess, the Soul Devourer clan's Gold Rock Saint. Then, he killed millions of souls and killed many people from the Soul Devourer clan and Thousand Demon sect. In the end, the Soul Devourer clan was almost destroyed by him alone. Not to mention that, as soon as he arrived at Sea Demon City, he used a brick to knock out all the great geniuses of the Demon clan. He stripped them naked, hung them up, and robbed them clean. At the same time, the people of Five Elements sect felt Chu Yang's lawlessness. They also felt how powerful Chu Yang was. He dared to be impudent no matter where he was. However, this wasn't the most shocking thing. Everything that Chu Yang had done on the Emperor Island could be said to be godly. Even if the people of Five Elements sect did not see it with their own eyes, they could not help but admire him from the bottom of their hearts just by hearing about it. The crown princes of the Four Kingdoms were all dead. The son of the city lord of Sea Demon City was dead. The 7-star divine child was seriously injured, and so on. Every piece of news could shake the entire eastern wilderness, making them feel how terrifying and powerful the enemy was. However, These people were all killed by Chu Yang in the end. Therefore, even if Chu Yang did not come out of Emperor Island before, his reputation was still widespread in the entire eastern wilderness. Everyone knew about him. Because of this, more and more people came to join Five Elements sect. The increase in the difficulty of the entrance examination of Five Elements sect was the best proof. Didn't they say that Chu Yang was locked in Emperor Island and could not come out? What's going on now? How can Emperor Island hold Chu Yang back? That's right. From our point of view, if Emperor Island is closed, then it's definitely over. However, to Chu Yang, I'm afraid this is not a problem at all. For example, in front of Chu Yang, the Soul Devourer clan and the Thousand Demon sect are nothing, but we tremble in fear when we see them. The questions buried in the hearts of the people of Five Elements sect were completely ignited at this moment. What I'm concerned about now is this: Chu Yang was hit by the desolate poison. Is he really fine? Who knows? However, since Chu Yang is back, I'm afraid this desolate poison really can't do anything to him. That's really impressive. It's said that the desolate poison was specially used by the great emperor of the eastern wilderness to deal with the desolate demons. Even the desolate demons were hit, but Chu Yang was actually able to withstand it. It's really hard to imagine. What's hard to imagine? Can't you just think that senior brother Chu is more powerful than the desolate demons? Chapter 866. Do you guys think that senior brother Chu will participate in the core disciple competition in a few days? Different people would naturally focus on different things. Does senior brother Chu still need to participate? Are you kidding me? Senior brother Chu killed the saints of the other sects like cutting grass. The deities of the other sects trembled when they saw him. Why would such a person need to compete with us for the core disciple spot? Senior brother Chu should be a deity now. As for the title, it's a headache. Of course, there were also people who refuted, that's not necessarily true. If I remember correctly, senior brother Chu was only a core disciple before he left the Five Elements sect. If we do things according to the rules, then it's true. Also, I'm afraid that the Five Elements deity will do something. When that time comes, it will be like that. In the midst of everyone's discussion, a lion's roar suddenly rang out, causing the people of the Five Elements sect to be silent. When they looked over, they were surprised to see a female hero rushing in angrily. Chu Yang's sister, Chu Na. The people of the Five Elements sect were very tactful and made a path for Chu Na to enter directly. Little sheep, get out here. Little sheep. Many people of the Five Elements sect were instantly speechless. Chu Yang, whose name shook the eastern wilderness, actually had such a nickname. Master, the female master is here. You should be prepared. A bald parrot was extremely eye-catching, so when it spoke, the people of the Five Elements sect couldn't help but look at the parrot. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a bald parrot? The parrot was furious, then said proudly, this is called personality, understand? The people of the Five Elements sect were stunned, and the parrot was disdainful, TSK, you won't understand even if I tell you. Playing the lute to a cow. Then, the parrot stood in front of Chu Na in a righteous manner. Mistress, this is my duty as a lackey. I have to buy a few seconds for my mistress. Please go easy on her, I'm afraid of pain. Chu Na was speechless. What kind of stupid bird is this? Does it have eyes? Little sheep, get your ass out here right now. Chu Na gnashed her teeth in anger. Then, to everyone's astonishment, they saw a person really roll out. Then, that extremely beautiful face smiled flatteringly at Chu Na and said, Sister, I've already rolled out on your orders. Sis, the parrot was flustered. It had made a big joke. Then, it cursed in its heart, what a noob. He can't even get a few females. He made a fool of himself. When Chu Na saw Chu Yang's appearance, she was stunned. This face was not unfamiliar to her. She could clearly see Chu Yang's original appearance, but the changes were also great. To be more precise, Chu Na was almost ashamed of her inferiority in front of this face. Then, without saying a word, she pinched Chu Yang's ear and pulled it hard. Chu Yang screamed. That scream was too much. It was obviously exaggerated. It was as if he had been cut by a knife, and the scream had the effect of being cut to pieces. Sister, are you trying to murder me? Chu Yang shouted. Look carefully, I'm your brother. Don't kill the wrong person. You still know that I'm your sister. Chu Na gnashed her teeth. She pulled Chu Yang's ear with one hand and slapped his head with the other. She was furious. Sister, I was wrong. Chu Yang begged for mercy. I promise I won't do it again. Every time Chu Yang did something shocking, it was just a shock to Chu Na. Didn't you say that you won't do it again? The more Chu Na thought about it, the angrier she became. I'll let you do it again, and again. When everyone saw this scene, they couldn't help but be stunned. Then, they burst into laughter. Chu Yang was indeed powerful, but in front of his elder sister, he had turned into a little lamb. Hearing the laughter, Chu Na was annoyed. She had to take Chu Yang's face into consideration. She said hatefully, "Come in." She was walking toward Chu Yang's courtyard when suddenly, a voice came from midair, causing her to stop in her tracks. Chu Yang, the Divine Sun wants you to see him. The person who spoke was the one-armed burning Heaven Holy Sun. The moment the burning Heaven Holy Sun appeared, the entire place fell silent. Chapter 867. Who does he think he is? What right does he have to ask me to see him? If you want to see me, come here yourself. Chu Yang coldly looked at him. The moment he opened his mouth, the noisy crowd suddenly became silent. Everyone in the Five Elements sect knew about the grudge between Chu Yang and the Five Elements Divine Child. Chu Yang had been forced to kneel. How could such a humiliation be forgiven? At that time, Chu Yang had just entered the Five Elements sect and no one had taken him seriously. The Five Elements Divine Child was naturally the same. But today, Chu Yang was so famous that everyone in the Eastern Barren Territory knew about him. The Five Elements Divine Child no longer had the right to order Chu Yang around. In fact, the Five Elements Divine Child should be ordered around by Chu Yang. Yet, the Five Elements Divine Child still maintained such an attitude and assumed a high and mighty attitude. What kind of reaction would Chu Yang have? The answer was self-evident. Furthermore, the Five Elements Divine Child's attitude showed that he had no intention of reconciling with Chu Yang. If he wanted to reconcile with Chu Yang, he shouldn't have such an attitude. After all, Chu Yang wasn't inferior to the Five Elements Divine Child. To be precise, the Five Elements Divine Child was inferior to Chu Yang. Now, most people in the Five Elements sect believed that the Five Elements Divine Child should be Chu Yang and definitely not the Five Elements Divine Child. At that moment, everyone in the Five Elements sect realized that a great battle was about to happen and that one side would probably die. As for who would die, most people believed that it would be the Five Elements Divine Child and definitely not Chu Yang. Chu Yang, don't be ignorant. This is the Divine Child's last kindness. The Burning Sky Saint said again. Everyone was shocked and stunned. How bold. Chu Yang was already angry, yet he still dared to say such things to Chu Yang. Was the Burning Sky Saint's brain completely rusty? Was he trying to put on airs in front of Chu Yang and use a superior tone? Was he courting death? Just as expected, everyone suddenly felt a gust of wind blow, and a figure flashed before their eyes. Then, they saw that Chu Yang had already grabbed the Burning Sky Saint's son's neck and lifted him up. In front of Chu Yang, the burning Heaven Holy Sun was like an ant, nothing at all. This was Chu Yang's prestige. He killed the Soul Devourer clan and 1,000 demon sects of Ilders, bullied and humiliated the Fiend race, killed Wasteland Demon Prince and Sea God's Child, forging a legend. How could a deity-like figure be looked down upon? However, no one thought that his actions were excessive. Instead, they thought that it was only natural. Everyone's expressions fell into Chu Na's eyes, and she couldn't help but be absent-minded. In the past, she would never have imagined this. If the Five Elements Divine Child was like this, she would have taken it for granted. But today, this person had become her little brother, Chu Yang, her little brother. Her little brother was already on par with the Five Elements God. No, Her little brother was now even more superior than the five elements god. Who does he think he is? How dare he be so impudent to senior brother Chu? Half a year ago, he could still bully senior brother Chu. But half a year later, he doesn't even know what kind of person senior brother Chu is. Does he still think that senior brother Chu is the same person who could be bullied half a year ago? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Even half a year ago, he wasn't senior brother Chu's match. If it wasn't for the sentencing elder, he would already be a dead man. Now, he dares to clamor at senior brother Chu. A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. The five elements divine child has gone too far. The burning sky saint sun was already suffocating from being choked. When everyone's discussion fell into his ears, and the gazes that looked like they were looking at an idiot, he felt fear, anger, and humiliation. However, he had no time to think about that. Haha. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,